My op-ed today over HartmannReport.com is kind of a reminder of how we got where we are today. And I think it's an important reminder. I got a note from a listener pointing out that over the weekend, CBS did a special, a report, Ted Koppel actually narrated it, about the 1979 seizure of the American the American hostages, the American diplomats by a group of Iranian students. And how Abdul Hassan Bani Sadr, who was president of Iran at the time and was a moderate, he was a pro-democracy moderate, was elected on a platform of releasing the hostages. In fact, 97% of all the votes that went for candidates who were in favor of releasing the hostages. So why didn't the hostages get released? I mean, the moderates were on the verge. They had largely taken over Iran. And, you know, the Shah was gone. The Shah had gone just months earlier. And you know, there was this battle basically going on between the moderates and the Ayatollah, who represented the right-wing radicals, the hardcore, the religious fundamentalists who wanted to turn Iran into a theocracy. And the Reagan administration, or the Reagan campaign rather, this was 1979, 1980, and Reagan was running for president. The Reagan campaign reached out to the Ayatollah, not to Bani Sadr, not to the president, but to the Ayatollah and said, you know, let's cut a deal. We'll support you. We'll, you know, help you become the supreme leader of Iran. And in exchange, and we will sell you spare parts for particularly for the F-16s or F-15s, I think they were back then, for the aircraft and other weaponry that the Shah bought from the United States. You need the spare parts, you need the ammunition. We will sell you that stuff in exchange for your hanging on to the hostages. Don't let them go. This will destroy Jimmy Carter's chances to get reelected president. He was actually quite popular at the time. And, you know, and Carter had just given this speech in earlier 79 in which he was talking about the energy crisis. You know, he said the energy crisis is real, and he proposed this solar bank. He said we want to have 20% of the nation's energy coming from solar by the year 2000, 26 years ago. And, you know, just laid out all these, you know, programs to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. And it would have worked, except that the Ayatollah took Reagan's deal to screw Carter and said, yeah, sure, we'll take your weapons, we'll take your spare parts, and in exchange for that, we'll hang on to the American hostages and make President Carter look bad so that Ronald Reagan can become president. And that's exactly what happened. It was treason. Now, the New York Times has confirmed this. It was 3 years ago, in 2023. The New York Times interviewed Ben Barnes, who was the former lieutenant governor of Texas, who had gone along on the flight to Paris to cut the deal with the Iranians to hang on to the hostages. And he was just like, it was kind of a deathbed confession. I mean, you know, he was an old guy and he wasn't doing well. I think he's since passed away. I could be wrong. But Ben Barnes confirmed this in the front page of the New York Times. And yet there was no mention of this in this CBS special that Ted Koppel did. Well, of course, CBS is now run by Barry Weiss on behalf of right-wing billionaires, you know, the Ellison family. So no surprise that they're not mentioning that the Reagan administration committed treason in order to win the 1980 election and pack the Supreme Court, by the way, I might add. And, you know, which brought us, of course, Citizens United, et cetera, the destruction of American democracy. But anyhow, that's the story. Bani Sadr he fled to the United States in 1981 and published a piece in the Christian Science Monitor in which he writes, after arriving in France in 1981, I told a BBC reporter that I left Iran to expose the symbiotic relationship between Khomeiniism and Reaganism. Ayatollah Khomeini and Ronald Reagan had organized a clandestine negotiation, later known as the October Surprise, which prevented the attempts by myself and then U.S. President Jimmy Carter to free the hostages before the 1980 U.S. presidential election took place. The fact that they were not released tipped the results of the election in favor of Reagan. So Reagan becomes president, and what does he do? He shuts down Carter's solar bank program that was going to have 20% of our electricity be generated by solar by the year 2000. He shuts down Carter's energy-saving programs. He ends any kind of support for green programs. He increases the hundreds of billions of dollars a year in subsidies that we provide to the fossil fuel industry, in exchange for which the fossil fuel industry shoveled millions of dollars into his campaign, into his re-election campaign in 1984, and basically ended up owning the Republican Party. Trump is doing the same thing. Trump has blown up and destroyed most of President Biden's green initiatives. He's done away with the incentives to buy electric vehicles. He killed the program that was going to build 100,000 charging stations across the country. He's increased and renewed subsidies for coal and ended subsidies for solar and wind. He's blocked the construction of windmills around the country. I mean, you know, he's doing exactly the same thing Reagan did, which is sucking up to the fossil fuel industry at the same time that we're, you know, in Iran and having basically a war for oil. None of this would be necessary. None of this would have happened, frankly, if Ronald Reagan hadn't committed treason in 1980, or at least his campaign. Bill Casey actually was his campaign manager at the time. Reagan made him CIA director. And later, as Barbara Honegger documents in her book, October Surprise, Bill Casey told his attorney, Milton Gould, that when he was supposed to testify before Congress, you know, and he told his lawyer he was going to testify, he was going to tell him the whole story of the October Surprise. And that morning that he was supposed to testify that afternoon. That morning he had a seizure and was at his desk and was taken to Walter Reed, where they removed the part of his brain that controls speech. They cut out his tongue functionally. So, I mean, you know, this is the guy who cut the deal. He never told the story. But now we've got it from Ben Barnes, you know, the former lieutenant governor of the state of Texas. So, you know, as a result of Reagan's embrace of the hard-right mullahs, they came to power. The moderates were pushed out of Iran. And, you know, we now have this mess that Trump has created with his unprovoked illegal war against Iran now. Wild stuff. Today we're reading from David Blight's book, Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom. This is from the introduction. In his speech at the dedication of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., September 24, 2016, President Barack Obama delivered what he termed a, quote, clear-eyed view of a tragic and triumphant history of black Americans in the United States. He spoke of a history that is central to the larger American story, one that is both contradictory and extraordinary. He likened the African American experience to the infinite depths of Shakespeare and Scripture. The, quote, embrace of truth as best we can know it, said the president, is, quote, where real patriotism lies. Naming some of the major pivots of the country's past, Obama wrapped up his central theme in a remarkable sentence about the Civil War era. Quote, we've buttoned up our Union blues to join the fight for our freedom. We've railed against injustice for decade upon decade, a lifetime of struggle and progress and enlightenment that we see etched in Frederick Douglass's mighty leonine gaze, end quote. How Americans react to Douglas's gaze, indeed how we gaze back at his visage, and more important, how we read him, appropriate him, or engage his legacies, informs how we use our past to determine who we are. Douglas's life and writing emerged from nearly the full scope of the 19th century, representative of the best and the worst in the American spirit. Douglas constantly probed the ironies of America's contradictions over slavery and race. Few Americans use Shakespeare and the Bible to comprehend his story and that of his people as much as Douglas. And there may be no better example of an American radical patriot than the slave who became a lyrical prophet of freedom, natural rights, and human equality. Obama channeled Douglas in his dedication speech, knowingly or not. So do many people today. Born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, a slave, in Talbot County, Maryland, in February 1818, the future Frederick Douglass was the son of Harriet Bailey, one of 5 daughters of Betsy Bailey, and with some likelihood his mother's white owner. He saw his mother for the last time in 1825, though he hardly knew her. She died the following year. Douglass lived 20 years as a slave and nearly 9 years as a fugitive slave subject to recapture. From the 1840s to his death in 1895, he attained international fame as an abolitionist, editor, orator of almost unparalleled signature, and the author of 3 autobiographies that are classics of the genre. As a public man, he began his abolitionist career 2 decades before America would divide and fight a civil war over slavery that he openly welcomed. Douglass was born in a backwater of the slave society of the South, just as steamboats appeared in bays and on American rivers, and before the telegraph, the railroad, and the rotary press changed human mobility and consciousness. He died after the emergence of electric lights, the telephone, and the invention of the phonograph. The renewed orator and traveler loved and used most of these elements of modernity and technology. Douglass was the most photographed American of the 19th century, explained in this book, and especially by the intrepid research of 3 other scholars I write upon. Although it can never really be measured, he may also have been, along with Mark Twain, the most widely traveled American public figure of his century. By the 1890s, in sheer miles and countless number of speeches, he had few rivals as a lecturer in the golden age of oratory. It is likely that more Americans heard Frederick Douglass speak than any other public figure of his time. Indeed, to see or hear Douglass became a kind of wonder of the American world. He struggled as well with the pleasures and perils of fame as much as anyone else in his century, with the possible exceptions of General Ulysses S. Grant or P.T. Barnum. Douglass's dilemma with fame was a matter of decades, not merely of moments, and fraught with racism. The orator and writer lived to see and interpret black emancipation, to work actively for women's rights long before they were achieved, to realize the civil rights triumphs and tragedies of Reconstruction, and to witness and contribute to America's economic and international expansion in the Gilded Age. He lived to the age of lynching and Jim Crow laws, when America collapsed into retreat from the real victories and revolutions in race relations that he had helped to win. He played a pivotal role in America's second founding out of the apocalypse of the Civil War, and he very much wished to see himself as a founder and defender of the Second American Republic. In one lifetime of anti-slavery, literary, and political activism, Douglass was many things, and the set of apparent paradoxes makes his story so attractive to biographers, as well as to so many constituencies today. He was a radical thinker and a proponent of classic 19th century political liberalism. At different times, he hated and loved his country. He was a ferocious critic of the United States and all its hypocrisies, but also, after emancipation, became a government bureaucrat, a diplomat, and a voice for territorial expansion. He strongly believed in self-reliance and demanded an activist interventionist government at all levels to free slaves, defeat the Confederacy, and to protect black citizens against terror and discrimination. Douglass was a serious constitutional thinker, and few Americans have ever analyzed race with more poignancy and nuance than this mostly self-taught genius with words. He was a radical editor, writer, and activist. The book Frederick Douglass by David Blight.
Is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more. In peace, there's nothing so becomes a person as modest stillness. And humility. But when the blast of this adventure blows in our ears, then imitate the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, set the teeth and stretch the nostril wide. Hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit to your full height. For there is none of you that hath not noble luster in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start, the game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, it is Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann Program. My name is Jefferson Smith, and it is my last day. Thank you, and apologies to the bard. Tom will return to you. What subjects should we broach, dear friends? It is Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann Program. The call-in number here is 202-808-9925. Received some notes from folks, including some nice notes. Appreciate that. The one topic that came up that we didn't give sufficient shrift to, we may have shortened their shrift. It really is remarkable, and by remarkable I mean worthy of remarking upon, that General Michael Flynn, who pled guilty, or pleaded guilty, same, to lying to the FBI about communications with Russia, while it has been demonstrated that Russia was actively interfering with American elections. That the Department of Justice, and then he decided later to sue the Department of Justice, a lawsuit nobody I know thought he had any chance of winning. Thought it was somewhat absurd. In fact, it was described as the only reason he's doing this lawsuit is either because he thinks Trump could be president again, because he sued in 2023, and it could be the mechanism for a payoff, or because at least it allows him to say when he's getting paid to right-wing and MAGA speaking gigs, I am fighting this, I was wrongly accused, I've filed a lawsuit. That it was a rhetorical device or a payoff device was what was speculated to me. Well, the payoff has happened, and Trump decided to pay him $1 million. Trump Department of Justice, I should say, and I should be more accurate, between $1.2 and $1.25 million. The Senator Mark Warner had this to say: the Department of Justice reported decision to pay out more than $1 million of taxpayers' dollars to Michael Flynn is outrageous. It is indefensible. This is someone who pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russian officials at a time when Russia was actively interfering in our democratic process, after being charged by the Department of Justice during President Trump's first term. For this Justice Department to now turn around to reward that behavior with $1 million settlement sends exactly the wrong message to our adversaries, sends to our intelligence officials, the American people. It undermines the rule of law, it demeans the work of the men and women to safeguard national security, etc. Thank you, Senator Mark Warner. It is as outrageous as it is indefensible. Donald Trump announced last night that he was signing an executive order to pay TSA agents. Previously, Republicans had brought to him a deal and said, hey, what if we fund DHS but not ICE? This airport stuff's making us look really bad. It's going to hurt the economy further, just as our war in Iran is hurting the economy. I just saw gas prices over $5 at the place near my house as a self-inflicted wound by inflicting wounds on others. And and Trump said, nope, I don't want that deal. And it looked like there was real progress trying to get folks home for spring recess. And he said, no, I don't want that deal unless I'm not going to reform ICE, and I want the SAVE Act. I want to kill vote by mail. I want to make it harder for people to vote. I want to suppress votes and crush democracy. Not his words, those are my words. And so no. And now he's come out and said, but executive order to pay the TSA agents. I didn't know. I thought the power of the purse was Congress's. Maybe it's not the purse this time, right? It was the Constitution, right? I thought the power of the purse was Congress's, but maybe it's not the purse. These are just like maybe this is just the coin purse, right? Or maybe it's like the change under the mattresses, right? Or so it's not the power of the purse, it's the power of the little change drawer in your car, right? Maybe it's the power of the wallet. Maybe the power of the wallet. We didn't talk about the power of the wallet. Maybe it's not the power of the purse. But I didn't know he could do that. Why did he do that a while back? If he could just do that, if he just spend money that hadn't been appropriated, why didn't he just do that before? Anyway, so the president is adding a constitutional insult to the injury that he is inflicting with his Department of Homeland Security policy plans. I am hopeful the money makes it to DSA agents and people don't have to work without pay and planes can fly. But those are a couple updates. Let's go to your calls. Let's go to Bill from Los Angeles. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Jefferson, we're glad to be here. I'd like to make a couple of brief points, if I may. First of all, I think it's unequivocal that the United States and Israel have proven themselves to be rogue nations and that we have to do something to stop them. Then number two, I want to say, it seems like there's been a big brouhaha about the non-payment of TSA worker wages, but it seems like the average person seems to have missed that the real point here is that a huge amount of this stuff that's come down the pike since the lie of the 9/11 attack on the United States supposedly by an Arab nation in 2001. All this stuff, look at the war on terror, the passage of the Patriot Act, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, the super enhancement of airport security. I think we need to get our heads on straight, wipe away all this junk, essentially go back to the way things were around 2000, turn of the century, and among other things, go back to just very reasonable, sensible level of airport security. And we can let go of about half those people. The ones that are there, we can pay them. The ones that can find meaningful employment somewhere else. I think that's what we need to do, is really look at the big picture and not just, look at these mini answers and which we don't go anywhere.
Appreciate it, Bill. Appreciate the call. Here's my big picture response, big-ish picture. So whatever one's political persuasion, do you think the American government has been getting better or worse? Do you think that the plight of the middle class has been getting better or worse, let's call it in the last 46 years? You think it's better? Let's have that conversation. If you think it's worse, understand that is precisely the time that we've seen a rightward shift in American government, where more of the funding burden has moved away from corporations and individuals, where there has been, first with the Reagan election, stepping away from any sort of Eisenhowerian or even Nixonian kind of moderate economic policy towards more Ayn Randian economic policy. Then with the Gingrich Revolution in the House, we have seen more right-wing government kind of inexorably march for those 46 years with back and forths, right? Moderate Clinton, slightly leftward, moderate Democrat Obama as president. So it has not been it is not just a smooth path, it's a bumpy path, but that's been the direction of the country. If you think that we haven't been doing as well, and by the way, the math agrees with you, if you think that the direction of the American government has not been going in the right direction for the middle class in the last 46 years, then it's pretty clear the movement that has been on the ascendance, the Fox News movement, the Drudge Report movement, et cetera, et cetera. So you might want to be a part of a different movement. If that might describe you, welcome. The call-in number here is 202-808-9925. It's Tom's show. This is your show.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program. Call number 202-808-9925. Anything goes Friday. Let's see what goes. I think it's Chubby from Orcas Island. Maybe you're talking about me. Go ahead, Chubby.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about Mark Wayne Mullen. The first thing is believe we're mispronouncing the first name. It's one word, not two, and it's probably French, so it would be pronounced Marquain. Isn't that a lot more fun? Marquain.
No
I like
idea.
that. Anyway,
Okay.
second point would be that you can't spell Mark Wayne or Marquain
Marquain. Yep.
without Kanye. Without
Oh,
the word
all right.
Kanye.
All right.
Also, one last thing. The anagram for Mark Wayne is warm Kanye. Thank you much.
Okay, so word games with Marquain, warm Kanye Mullen. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, I listened to Runaway by Kanye's best song a few days ago. It's, you didn't ask about Kanye, but you did bring it up. I've been thinking about Kanye, and I've been thinking about Bob Dylan. I set aside Bob Dylan. I'll stick with Kanye. It's a tragedy to me. Because, yeah, it's just tragedy to me. The direction of his life. I've seen what happened to him. I saw what happened to Rosie O'Donnell. I saw it happen to a local radio guy, had been a friend of mine. They're all different stories, but they all went a little crazy. They all went a little crazy. And I've thought about the cause of that crazy. And since it's Anything Goes Friday, it seems to me that there's crazy targeting happening in the country. That social media and geocache technology, the ability to use algorithms and target specific people with specific messages, I think that happens. I think we know that happens. They use it to sell products, etc. And whether it happens intentionally or accidentally, I think that people who have some susceptibility can be pushed over some edges. And the weaponization of social media persuasion, concerns me. My other half-baked, one-third baked, Anything Goes Friday thought about Kanye is the artist whose power is to channel the universe or listen to what the universe is saying. That's what Rick Rubin says in his book on creativity. That's what creativity is sort of listening to the universe. Bob Dylan, I think, was great at listening to the universe. And he listened to the universe during the anti-war era, and then he listened to the universe when he sold his music and likeness for an American Express ad. That when somebody sort of has that channeling ability, that kind of sensitivity to the zeitgeist, that if you can geocache that zeitgeist, if you can target that person with influence and a different kind of social proof, you might be able to influence them powerfully. And I think Kanye has hurt people, and I also wonder if Kanye was a victim. I know, it's kind of random thoughts, but let's go to your calls next. Let's go to Albert from Nashville. You're on.
Hello there. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. You said you had a quick sign. We might be able to fit in if you go quick.
Oh, yeah. One thing I want to say, I was laughing all morning with Stephanie, and then you came back and you said the most pleasant
Hold on
things.
1 second. Hold on 1 second. We'll bring you back.
Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So between his tax cuts and crashing the debt ceiling and shifting billions of Treasury dollars into crypto and tariffs and all this other stuff, Trump is threatening to crash our economy. And he doesn't seem to be particularly worried about that. Why would that be? Well, first off, economic disasters are great excuses to cut taxes. Both Reagan and George W. Bush used recessions as their excuse to stimulate the economy by cutting trillions from the taxes of billionaires. Secondly, economic crises increase the tolerance for strongman governments. Hitler rode to power in Europe based on the Great Depression. And third, billionaires make a fortune when there's a market crash because they can buy all the stock that average people are trying to unload from their 401ks to pay the damn rent. There's a whole article about this that lays the whole thing out over at HartmannReport.com. It's titled Crashing the Economy, Trump's Blueprint for Power and Profit. Check it out.
They shout about the First Amendment. Wave the flag and pound the pulpit.
Appreciate everybody who supports the program and who supports the folks who support this program. Albert from Nashville, Tennessee, go ahead.
Hey, first sign was an old homage. Something in the way, yeah. That'd be Nirvana. And my flagship is Same Hoods. Falsehoods. 9, 9, 9, 9.
See, anything goes Friday,
Thank you very
Albert.
much.
That just went. Appreciate you. Appreciate the call. We're going to keep it rolling. Saturday, tomorrow is the big day. Jessica, you're on the air.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you for being there for us. And I have loved your wisdom and your humor through all these shows.
Those are two of my, those two
Jeff,
qualities alongside my humility are among the best.
And Jeff, yesterday when you told the vet that the Jags couldn't go after Trump, they can't go after Hegseth either because those are the two bosses of all the troops.
Yeah.
But I want to say it's time for the Democrats to get on the offense immediately. Hegseth has, and I on my poster, Hegseth has committed 9 war crimes and counting. Now, the Philippines went after their president, and they weren't in The Hague either, and they have him arrested sitting in The Hague. So I've been calling all the congressmen and senators, and I mostly call the attorneys, and because I know they might be strong and brave, but I'm requesting that they have Hegseth picked up for The Hague. It's time. I believe we are in clear and present danger. Who knows what if they drop a bomb? I mean, a really big bomb. And then I want to say my banners, I have 3 banners, and my cousin said, oh, that's scary. She did not think it was. She wasn't sure about it. But I wrote on it, Pete Hegseth has committed 9 war crimes. I wrote that, and he belongs in The Hague, and then I dripped it with red paint for blood. And then I have one more dripped with blood. It says, we don't want Kushner and Netanyahu's war. The first week we have spent $11.3 billion, and that's dripped in blood as well. And the hard part, I had to put the cats in the other room. They were getting little bloody paw prints, and I'm like, no.
Well, that could be a sign. I don't know what the thing would be, but there'd be some sort of feline sign with the bloody prompt. You're using paint, right? You're not yes. Using the blood of an animal to make your signs. This is paint. This is red paint.
Never.
Okay,
I'm a lover of every animal there is.
Do you have a favorite?
And I do have one. My favorite animal?
Yeah.
I love them all. Cats, maybe. My husband has a big. We didn't use his hair this time for a poster. We did a 3D poster he had Trump hair, and it stuck out. People like that one. But I have ice kills, defund them, and then I think I'm going to put that in blood too. But
it's dark.
Yeah.
It's dark. You're going Stephen King style. All right.
I'm very dark, except for, here's the funny part. I'm not putting blood on the chart. I'm using, actually, it was what Tom had mentioned, the difference between Hitler and Trump. I'm doing a chart, and it's on a poster, and it's how many people were detained, and Trump is like double the number, and it's how many concentration camps we have / detainment centers. and Trump is like triple the number, so it's insane.
Thank you, Jessica, for the call. I want to jump to Don. You have a wonderful day and a great weekend, and be out there tomorrow. Don from Brinkley, Arkansas. You're on the air.
Thank you, Jeff. I have the solution to affordability. Thom Hartmann, in his monologue, explained to the American people what was going on with Woodrow Wilson from the 40s and why the American worker was so successful. They had a bottom-up approach, and then Reagan came along and gave us a trickle-down. The Democrats need to start a movement that involves the American worker, the unions, the teachers, anybody that gets up and goes to work. The Democrats need to focus on promoting promoting those people and getting that platform out there, and let the American worker become the person that saves this country. And that's the only thing that's gonna help.
There you go, Don. No, I can't say much better. Thank you so much. And one of the things that's happened, right, during the Progressive era, during the New Deal, during the Great Society, you'd have big jobs programs that helped put people to work building American infrastructure. Biden did the infrastructure package that Trump was never able to do, was also a big one.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
And when we don't do that, sometimes you have the building trades unions thinks their best friend is the big employer. Notice, forgetting that big employer would dump them if they could. 202-808-9925.
Our book today is Future War, Preparing for the New Global Battlefield by Robert, I believe it's pronounced Latif, L-A-T-I-F-F. This is from the introduction. On a sweltering August day following weeks of heightened tension with Russia over its actions in Ukraine and Syria, and harsh words between the United States and China over actions in the South China Sea, and as workers are preparing to depart the cool of their air-conditioned Manhattan office buildings for the gridlocked highways and subways, several large electric power plants along the East Coast simultaneously experienced dramatic overspeed conditions in their large turbine generators. Plant operators are unable to stop the steam turbines, whose automatic control and data systems have been infected by sophisticated computer malware, and they catastrophically tear themselves apart, cutting power to large segments of the population and industries in the Northeast. Building systems shut down, hospitals switch to emergency generators, trains stop running, traffic lights cease operating, and Wall Street trading comes to a halt. At the same time, 1,100 miles to the south, a massive rocket sits fueled and ready to launch a critical national security satellite when an explosive-laden private aircraft flies at low altitude into the Cape Canaveral launch pad area and, despite repeated warnings, slams into the pressurized fuel tank and solid rocket motors, creating an enormous conflagration. Half a world away, elite commandos equipped with the latest high-technology equipment but unidentifiable as a national army attack U.S. and allied interests near areas of disputed territory. Thus are fired the opening shots of a new war. These hypothetical events represent a radically different style of conflict fought with new tools and against new and unfamiliar enemies. When most people think of war, they imagine soldiers doing battle with other soldiers, employing tanks, artillery, and other recognizable weapons. However, in this century, war has morphed into something we can scarcely recognize, and future conflicts will be qualitatively and quantitatively unlike those of the past. They will be fought using innovative and unusual weapons, many of which, because the technologies have both civilian and military uses, will be available to far more people who are far less skilled in their employment. The so-called democratization of technology has diminished the monopoly of advanced countries on the tools of war. 21st century armed conflicts often have no battlefield in the traditional sense. The concept of opposing armies clashing in deadly struggle but moderated by international conventions of behavior seems a thing of the past. In 1999, Chinese colonels Kuo Liang and Wang Shuangshui predicted that soldiers would increasingly be computer hackers, financiers, drug smugglers, and agents of private corporations rather than members of a military, and that their weapons would include not only airplanes, cannons, poison gas bombs, and biochemical agents, but also computer viruses, net browsers, and financial derivative tools. Their predictions were prescient. Yesterday's wars were, like World War II, about saving civilized nations from maniacal dictators, or like the conflicts in Vietnam and Korea, devoted to a clash of ideologies in the attempt to limit the spread of one hegemon over another. They were big affairs involving large military forces and enormous violence. Today's wars are more about cultural and religious hatreds, using violence as a means to change the hearts and minds of people, among whom the killing occurs with more frequency. Tomorrow's wars will be different still, fought largely for political dominance with stealth and cunning, targeting innocents and institutions, heavily dependent on information superiority, and employing strange new weapons. While we have a highly motivated and well-trained and equipped armed forces that will adapt, we are not prepared as a nation to react well to the inevitably messy and ambiguous situations these new conflicts and weapons will present. We still have no clear idea of what constitutes an act of war in cyberspace now, nor of how we might respond to such an act. It is not enough for the military to be prepared. Neither the public nor its decision makers have yet fully comprehended the significance of the changes in the types of conflict and the tools with which they will be fought. Without question, there will be circumstances when decision makers will find it necessary, or at least think it necessary, to send soldiers into classic boots-on-the-ground combat situations. We will continue to project force with our powerful aircraft, our munitions, and our aircraft carrier strike groups. When war is fought in foreign lands, it could well be against other high-tech armies. However, war will increasingly be more personal and often fought closer to home. It will not lend itself to the traditional massive displays of U.S. firepower. It will affect individuals directly, not as some distant conflict we read about in newspapers or watch in the movies or on the internet. Americans will be targeted on U.S. soil, often, as we have seen in San Bernardino and Orlando, by homegrown terrorists. This form of war will be messy and complex, and it will not lend itself to easy, quick, soundbite solutions. It may not even be clear for a while who perpetrated the violence against us. Was it state-sponsored or a random act of terror? Will we unleash massive destruction on foreign countries in retaliation for attacks by terrorists residing on our own soil? If so, to what end and with what consequences? There are always consequences, whether they be the death or capture of our own troops, unnecessary civilian casualties, or the incitement of more violence. The book Future War by Robert Latif. Did you know that every weekday we send out an email before the show giving you all the topics coming up so you can be fully informed and ready to interact with our program? Or that after the show we send out Sue's Stack, a list of every topic I've discussed along with clickable hot links to every source of information I've shared with you on the air? It's all completely free and available over at thom.tv, THOM.tv. Check it out.
Welcome back. Here to speak truth to power, and by that I mean because you ought to have the power, and you have more than you think. Let's go to Brian from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, good morning. Let me step in my shed, get out of the wind.
Yeah, you don't want to be in the, you got to get in the shed, got a little protection.
Yeah, I was trying to get the yard cleaned up. I just want to make the comment that I think climate change is really going to stir things up and shake up our politics more than people realize the next half decade or so.
Yep.
Most of western United States has about a third of the moisture they should have at this point of the year. All of our reservoirs are about a third full of where they should be, which has been the trend for the last couple of decades. And then my general criticism is, in our politics, we need to make more room for discussions of the future and what the future is going to be for the United States and the world, frankly. And I mean, we got a lot of very serious issues to work out, but we keep spending 90% of the time rehashing the past or talking about the outrage of the day, which is part of the strategy and the MO of the Trump regime is to just constantly have these idiotic fights so everybody's all confused and frustrated. And now we're in a real hot, very messy war that could really, really shake up our economy more than people realize. And we need to let things that happened 30, 40 years ago go. It's already happened. You know, globalization is here. I think the Democratic Party made a lot of very bad mistakes going through that era. And we need to start painting a picture of what the future needs to be.
All right,
You know,
so let's just start out. So it's capably stated and wisely pointed out, and I agree really strongly. In fact, a fun interview question is, or even just fun rhetorical question is. Remember when we were kids, you could make build a model car. I don't know if they have that anymore, but you model car,
I did that.
glue it together. Remember that? And the question was, what's the most? I'll even ask you the question, Brian. What's the most valuable piece? What's the most important piece of that model car kit?
It's just figuring out how to do things, using your imagination. And just, the logic of going through the process.
Absolutely agree with that.
And,
can you think of the most important part, the most important thing that's included when you purchase the model car kit?
The glue, the paint.
Yeah, that's a very common answer.
I really
right?
like the painting.
That's good. My answer was the steering wheel, because otherwise you couldn't drive anywhere, right? Best answer I ever heard was the picture on top of the box. The picture on top of the box. You know what the car is supposed to look like. And one way I can interpret what you said is, if all we're doing is fighting back and forth, we don't have a picture on top of the box. We don't have a roughly vague, maybe mildly clear vision we're aiming towards, then we're not going to go anywhere, right? Or we're going to go in the direction of someone that does have a clear picture on top of the box, tends to push us. So I agree with that a bunch. What are the areas of the future that you think we ought to have most attention on? Climate change, you said, and or is there a device you would use or a method you would use or a recommendation you'd have on how we can better and more habitually focus on the future?
I always think about, imagine if, since like Reagan got elected in 1980, he already got out of high school.
Yeah.
If the last 46 years repeat themselves just like they did in America, most Americans got wealthier. A lot of Americans were very prosperous. We live a very blessed lifestyle compared to the rest of the world. How is this going to happen? So that would bump us up population growth up to 450 million people. Because when Reagan was elected, it was 280 million. Now we're at 335 million, and the same growth rate would put us at 450 million. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's add in. We have a housing shortage. We have a lifestyle or a family affordability problem. How are we going to handle? How do all these pieces fit together? And I think the Democratic Party has a horrible brand because it's like they have no real plans, and they just want to. Everything that's gone on, they don't want to fix it. Like the immigration mess. It truly was a mess, and the Democrats went along with it, and Republican businessmen exploited it. And then Trump, the criminal, exploited the issue, the mess, to get him in power. We got to stop, letting these obvious problems fester. I want
to stick to your point, and I can try to take.
A lot of American cities are running out of water.
And Brian, I can try to take the bait and answer my question, but I wanted to say, so you said we got to stop looking at the past, and then sort of gave me the immigration thing. I have a response to that. Is there a mechanism you do? Maybe that's the mechanism. Just say the future and then ask people to think more about the future. And maybe you already offered your best thoughts about that. Any last word from you?
Well, we got to start enforcing laws, and how do the laws work in the future? That's another issue.
Okay. Well, thanks, Brian. So I'll say something about the on immigration. I do have a quibble there. So where I think it's true is I think there are there are a lot of Democrats who would have rather that issue gone away, would rather not been. I think there are a lot of Democrats who would rather that not been a thing, that because it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable with foundations that fund BIPOC stuff, uncomfortable with voting bases, uncomfortable with advocacy nonprofit organizations, done wrong, sometimes even done right. It can certainly feel racist. There's a lot of Democrats who wanted to avoid that issue, and probably to their detriment, but not in the main, not, or certainly not entirely, right? I mean, there was both prior to Trump, during Trump, and during Biden, real bipartisan efforts to do bipartisan immigration reform. That wasn't a failure of the Democratic Party. In fact, Trump stepped in, as we all know, is well publicized. Trump stepped in to kill the bipartisan immigration legislation so that he could still have the excuse, not only have the political issue to win, but so that he could have the political excuse to build his own quasi-private army. So he could have a specially funded ICE that stayed funded even when TSA agents weren't being funded. They had their own special pot of money. He wanted to be able to still have that stuff. He wanted to have both the issue and the ability to hire a bunch of Proud Boys and put them in masks. I do encourage folks to read your state's Democratic Party platform. Folks who aren't precinct committee people, folks who don't get involved in the Democratic Party, it's worth at least looking into, because I think you'll find, like, very often the people I hear that are frustrated about the party that is most adjacent to things they believe in, when they're frustrated, it usually lies alongside their disengagement from the apparatus. Not all the time, right? I was involved in electoral politics. It didn't make me respect electoral politics entirely by doing that. It also earned me some disrespect of elements of it. But if you participate in your county party meeting, you will find people. Some people will drive you crazy, some people you'll love, and a lot of people will be like you. And if you read the platform of your county party or of your state party, is more likely to actually have written out a platform, you will find a lot of things you agree with, including things about the future. You'll also find some things that drive you crazy, some things you ought to change, some things that are probably absent. But what gets manifested through the filter of major media, through algorithms on social media, through legacy media, et cetera, through major advertising, through focus group campaigns, et cetera, ain't the whole deal. But finally, I do want to just strongly agree with this idea of greater focus on the future. Let me give you three things. I know I'm going on a bit about it. Heck yes, climate change. Look at the real things that are going to be driving results. There's a bunch of them, but here's a few of them. Climate change is going to be really important. It's going to drive lots of stuff. It's going to impact island nations. It's going to impact northern movement. It's going to impact immigration, because people are going to feel the urge more and more to move northward. Right? I mean, maybe real southward, but part of the challenge is the real south. There's just, Australia, South America, Patagonia, not as much land as northern Europe, as northern North America, right? North of the 45th parallel. There will be immigration. We have to figure out how to deal with that, both in migration, both within countries and to new countries. Second, rise of robots. Big, big, big. What are the future jobs? What's the role of the economy? What does that mean for a minimum basic income? What does that mean for jobs programs that the government runs? What does that mean for energy? Remember the climate change thing I just said. What does that mean for the role that government should play in energy? Should all that be all the stuff that's extracted, all the stuff that is pulled from the sky, pulled from the sun, pulled from the water, should all that be privately owned, or should some of that be shared? That is going to be a big, big issue. And then I'll give a third one, that's government. What is the role of self-government? I put the plug in for civic assemblies, for sortition, not just for politicians, not just for fundraising campaigns, not just for Citizens United. And also for the improvement of government systems, not bigger, smaller government, better government, making sure it delivers services better. Those are three.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
What are your thoughts of the future? I gave you three. Also, it's Anything Goes Friday, so you got conspiracy theories we didn't cover last Friday. Now or never. Let's go to Paul from Woodinville. Hello, Paul.
Well, hi, Jeff. I have to ask the previous caller, Brian. It seemed like the problems that he wants to identify over the last, what he said, 46 years, are all responsibilities of the Democrats. He had nothing to say about how the Republicans have contributed. So I would say this, in terms of planning for the future, it's Democratic policies that are planning for the future. But they always get resistance from the Republicans. And as if immigration is a problem that the Democrats left, and it's a mess, which, by the way, it isn't. It's not a mess. It's an issue that the Republicans continually bring up, basically, since 9/11. We all have to be afraid of who's coming here. I don't see how it's... I wonder if he's really a Democrat. I think he sounds like a kind of a buyer's remorse Trump voter.
I love that guy. I love the guy, and I think you're right. I think I should have asked him this, but my impression is a little swingy, right? I don't mean like he sleeps with various people's wives. That's what I'm talking about. I mean he's like he's like kind of on the fence about some things, and that's the kind of person is worth having a conversation with. It's worth figuring out because I believe that a compelling vision for the country has got to be a compelling vision for a supermajority of the country. Doesn't have to be 2/3, but it's got to be more than 50.1. It's definitely got to be more than 40.1, which is about where Trump's approval is right now. And we've got it because ultimately it's going to take a while to achieve that vision. So yeah, no, I get the same signals you get, but I love that conversation. But Paul, keep going.
Well, the thing is that the first thing, planning for the future is, how far. What we have to have is vision that takes concrete actions to address problems that we have now, and that are going to help avoid problems in the future. The Republicans are completely resistant to that. They will encapsulate things like climate change, all that. That's regulations. By the way, when Republicans say that regulations stifle innovation, that is absolutely false. Regulations actually spur innovation, and I'll tell you why. And I get this from a friend of mine who's an R&D chemist, a small chemical company, and he'll tell you this: it's not environmental regulations that are my problem, really. He says when I'm developing a product for a makeup company like Revlon, they got a list as long as my right arm about what this thing has to do, and they got another list as long as my left arm about what this thing cannot do. So I have to figure out some chemistry that actually solve these problems. So what that means is regulations, whether they're by the customer or by the government, is actually what causes smart people to come up with good ideas. He says, otherwise, if I don't have regulations for anything, I'll just throw the crap in the river. I don't care if that's the cheapest thing to do. Just get rid of this. Oh, okay, I'll throw it in the river. That's what Republicans don't get, is that if you want to deal with the future, well-intentioned regulations that have a goal are what spurs innovation. Otherwise, you'll just get the cheapest, crappiest way to do something. And like my buddy says, if I'm a chemical company, if we want regulations for not throwing it in the river, a lot of chemical companies would just do that. And that's what they did for a long time. And that's why we're where we are now.
Thanks for the call, Paul. We're going to break. Caller number is 202-808-9925. Anything Goes Friday on the Thom Hartmann program. We'll be right back.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. They called it blood libel, what the Germans were doing against the Jews, claiming that they were using the blood of Christian children to make their matzah. We've got a new blood libel now here in the United States. J.D. Vance and Donald Trump lying through their teeth, arguing that black Haitian immigrants to the United States, legal immigrants with green cards in this little town in Ohio, are eating pets. This is another libel that goes way back. In the 1890s, people were claiming German and Dutch immigrants were eating pets. Then they claimed in the 1880s And actually, as recently as last year, a restaurant got shut down in California because of claims that they were serving pets. They weren't. But it was an Asian restaurant. This is just evil stuff, these lies and spreading this kind of hate. And this is now the strategy that the Republicans are using. There's a whole article about it at HartmannReport.com, Hate as a Political Weapon. Check it out.
This was supposed to be our house. Built with borrowed power. Doors meant to stay open. Lights.
Let's go to Sandra. Hello, Sandra Newberg.
Hello. I have a solution for the future for the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And I would call it Project 21st Century.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be akin to what the Republicans did with Project 2025. But since we don't have deep pockets, probably, to be paid, to do this by the Heritage Foundation, it would need to be crowdsourced, probably through the DNC, broken up into different subjects, just like the people have been talking about. But it's the platform, and get it going now, not wait till the presidential election year, which is normally when we hear about the platform.
Sure.
And get input in different fields from different people. From Democrats who are involved, and I think that's how we need to do it, and put stuff in the news so what's going on, because we were hearing about Project 2025 long before the election of 2024. So that's my idea for the future.
Laying out, the progressive movement did this at the beginning of the turn of the last century, putting out Gingrich did it with the Contract with America, that putting out core, both principles, objectives, sort of vision pieces, those Lego blocks of a movement-worthy set of would-be accomplishments, I think is a critical exercise, and that can be built by a great genius, that could be built through a platform, convention-style thing, that could be built through sort of brick by brick, by folks, including folks like you, to say, hey, what are some of those sort of key pieces, and what is that branding? And I think both sort of center out and top down and bottom up. I think that's how things get written. I think that's how things get done when you have a big group, and a big group of over 100 million people, and that's why I go to Thoreau, right? We're not here to do everything, we're here to do something. Let's pick a piece of that. It can be rooted in core, it ought to be rooted in core values. It can be rooted in what we want the future to be and what we anticipate we're going to be facing in the future, and start working on that stuff. And yeah, it's 202-808-9925 if you got some. Sandra, is there something that you'd most want to put on that, what you're calling Project 21st Century?
There's just so many things.
Sure, pick one.
I mean, it would be gun control.
Yeah.
Would be one. Education, climate. I mean, all of it. But piece by piece, and have it publicized.
Yep.
I think that's where the Democrats have failed in the past. It's just the publicity part of it. So that's my idea, and I appreciate you letting me have my say. Thank you.
Heck yes. You be well.
You too.
Let's go to Marie. Marie from Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey there, Jefferson. Thanks for taking my call. Let me put this in context. Now that we are hearing that the United States is largely insolvent,
mm-hmm.
I think it is important for Democrats, for those seeking to unseat incumbents, to manage expectations. This is kind of like, this is like the bad tenant who throws purple paint on the walls and puts stains on the rug because they don't want to have to leave the apartment they haven't been paying for. At this point, we have a government that has been digging a hole, and what's the rule when you find yourself in a hole? Stop digging. Meaning that those in this midterm really have to be careful about promising something that we don't really know we're going to have the funds for.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stop digging phase. 2028 is the cancel the permits phase, when we change who's in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And then The rebuilding phase is 2030. So we're in for a long slog. It's not impossible, but it's a long slog. But I do think we need to manage expectations given how much money has been pilfered, stolen, contracted away, whatever bad behavior, it's gone.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think fiscal responsibility alongside honest, bold, visionary thinking about the application of resources. I mean, think about what the government can still pay its bills as long as it votes to pay those bills. I mean, we have, the government is as powerful as it chooses to be, almost, and that includes economically. My plug would be, and I started to mention this the other day, but what I got from a old-timer legislator who actually lived down the street from me, and he'd served in my district for 4 representatives before me, and before he died, he said, Jeff, the thing you got to do, the thing you got to advocate for is find ways to generate revenue for public services without raising taxes. And this guy was sort of borderline socialist guy, and he had worked for the railroads. He was a union guy. He worked for the railroads, and that has rung in my ears, rang in my ears for the better part of a decade or two. And thinking about how we can be smart with money, and that's why I bring up energy. It's why I bring, think in terms even when dams were built. How do we be smart with money? It's not always just more or less. It's also about how. But Maria, we'll let your thought linger.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
We say fight back!
Feminists. It's a collection of essays edited by Jane Eric Udori. This first chapter, first essay, is from Charlotte Shane. It's called No Wave Feminism. If you feel like feminism is failing you, you're not alone. I sometimes have the impression that I'm as thoroughly feminist as I am thoroughly human. That feminism is as intrinsic to my contribution to my constitution as my skeleton is to my body. But in my 35 years, I've struggled with or outright rejected feminism on several occasions. First, as an ignorant adolescent, what do women need feminism for if they already got the vote? Then, as a sex worker who saw how regularly and even gleefully feminists stoked the public's long-standing antipathy toward professionally sexual women. And now again, as someone moving even further into the far left, who cannot abide the forms of feminism that embrace and are complicit with the worst aspects of liberalism. The more I learn about the intersecting oppressive forces that continue to shape the Western world, colonialism, patriarchy, capitalism, xenophobia, and racism, and the network of cruel social machinery to which these systems give rise, incarceration, crippling debt, disenfranchisement, deportation, and so on, the less sense it makes to use gender as the primary lens through which to regard human-engineered suffering. Feminism doesn't feel like the sharpest weapon to wield against white supremacy or border policing, for instance, or even the best tool with which to approach basic civic concerns like vibrant schools. That's not because those issues don't impact women. Obviously, they directly and indirectly impact many. But they don't necessarily impact women more or in dramatically different ways than they do men. In other words, the most significant challenges these issues present aren't tethered to one's sex. And so prioritizing gender above other aspects of identity limits one's realm of ethical responses. Here's an example. American prisons often keep female prisoners shackled while they give birth. There are variations on the theme. Some women are shackled during labor, some are unshackled, but then shackled again almost immediately afterward. and almost all are shackled while heavily pregnant. There's some variation of what shackling entails, too. It can mean being cuffed at the wrists or at the ankles, or both, or cuffed to a hospital bed or chained at the waist. Articulating these details makes the sadism even starker. A class action federal lawsuit in 2017 alleged more than 40 women at the Milwaukee County Jail suffered this horror. It was preceded by lawsuits in 2014 and 2016 against that same jail for similar practice. But the appalling practice is hardly confined to one city or one state. In 2015, New York prisons were found to be shackling prisoners in labor in spite of a state law that made it illegal to do so. And according to a 2016 report by the Prison Birth Project and Prisoners Legal Services of Massachusetts, jails and prisons in Massachusetts were guilty of similar violations. Most feminists probably agree that this is a feminist issue. The topic accordingly receives coverage on feminist websites and sometimes in women's magazines. But does a feminist obligation to attend to the rights of the imprisoned extend only as far as pregnancy and labor? Or is it a feminist issue when a non-pregnant woman is shackled? Or when she is caged for years and exploited for her labor, denied face-to-face visits from loved ones, held captive in a compound in the name of, quote, justice? If the answer to these questions is yes, then it is also a feminist issue. Then is it also a feminist issue when men are shackled during various health emergencies, seizures, say? In 2014, a male inmate in Colorado died after undergoing several seizures while in restraints and receiving no medical treatment. Is it a feminist issue when incarcerated men are denied the right to visit with family or exploited for their labor? Is it a feminist issue when so many men are raped while in prison? Or does feminism's responsibility begin and end with gender-based mistreatment? The feminists hired by prominent media outlets often advocate for measures that would result in higher levels of incarceration. They write op-eds in favor of further criminalization around sex work and call for longer prison sentences for men convicted of assault, which we've known for decades is not necessarily synonymous with men who committed the crime. They also disturbingly relish the theater of sentencing, like that enacted by Judge Rosemary Aquilina, who told serial sexual abuser Larry Nassar that if she could, she would allow some or many people to do to him what he did to others. So sexual violation is an atrocity unless it happens to the right person. They capitalize on women's justified fear and anger around mistreatment by men to shore up the status quo, to suggest that our current problems are not the result of fundamentally unjust institutions, but rather institutions that are only incidentally sexist. That means that those same institutions could become less so with the right adjustments, like more draconian sentencing for crimes against women, or more female judges. But the prison system is racist and brutal by design, not by accident or mismanagement, just as the court system regularly fails the most vulnerable because it was built to protect the powerful. The challenge of the 21st century is not to demand equal opportunity to participate in the machinery of oppression, revolutionary thinker Angela Davis has written. Rather, it is to identify and dismantle those structures. Yet leveraging our existing legal system for criminalization remains the go-to strategy for most feminists when it comes to dealing with objectionable behavior. The book, Can We All Be Feminists?
We say fight back!
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
And welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. The CNN's poll of polls average puts Trump's approval rating among U.S. adults at 38%. That's not very good. It's actually pretty bad. That's, I think, the lowest he's been since he returned to office last year. As we head into the No Kings protests, Republicans in the House are expected to reject the Senate-passed DHS bill, likely extending the shutdown. That's bad news. I think maybe Donald Trump recognized that his statement, I mean, it's just whatever he said, it's so annoying. I mean, if you remember the press, it's just got to be annoying. And it's got to be more than annoying. And I wish members of the press would speak out more about this. It's not a waste of time for you to do so. That what he says bears no meaningful relationship to what is true. He said something about like 8 ships made it through the Strait of Hormuz. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, we know, like, it just appears to have made up of whole cloth. He said, I needed to be here in the White House when I voted. He was in Palm Beach when he voted. Like, it's just, there's nothing, like, instead of enjoying the sunshine, he was enjoying the sunshine. It's just hard to, it's a slippery bar of soap. You can't get your fingers around it and stay there. But it looks like we're going to go through the weekend with the shutdown, with TSA agents remaining unpaid, with airports being crowded, being slow, people missing flights. Say stuff in the airports, folks. If you have any flights this weekend, say stuff in the airport. Make sure they're trying to propagandize. They're trying to put a, Kristi Noem style. I know she's out, but Kristi Noem style video there to try to propagandize in the airports. Do your own truthful communications. You can be short, like, thanks, Trump. Right, when you're on a long, long line, when everybody's there just frustrated, right? That 38%, it is still, I mean, that's sort of the lock-in level. If it ever gets down to 32, 33, 31, 29, that's when I'll notice that something is not only shifted with swing voters in this country, but when some members of the cult are questioning it. But I think the cult is strong enough that I think it's hard to get it below 38. But it'd be nice to get that poll of polls average down to 36, 35, 34, 33, right? Convince a few more of them in the airports this weekend. Convince a few more of them tomorrow at the No Kings protest. Speaking of which, let's go to your calls. Go ahead, Mike from Madison. You are on the air. Let's try Mitch from Netcon. Go ahead, Mitch. You're on the air.
Yeah, good day to you, Jefferson. I'm not that long of a listener, but it's a pleasure. Okay, I just have a quick question about the New Mexico lawsuit that was adjudicated by a jury, slamming Meta with a $375 million.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking that a lot of lawsuits against monopolies, specifically tobacco, it was originally state initiatives that got that ball rolling. And I think what's going to happen with the Meta case in New Mexico is that there might be 2 or 3 other lawsuits in other states going through right now. But I think it's up to the states.
It's a great point. And tobacco litigation, I think, is what court watchers and what litigators are looking at as a guide. And some of those early lawsuits weren't initiated by states; they were initiated by individuals. Then when some of them, when they started getting some precedent, started getting some legal theory, started getting some wins, then attorneys general, then folks in states started filing those lawsuits. And that, to your point, is really when things things really started to move. When the tobacco industry came to the table and the enormous tobacco settlement was agreed upon, because then you had real litigation resources being brought and enough weight. The tobacco industry could say, yeah, this is a big enough class that we can get this class certified. When you do a class action lawsuit, you have to certify the class. And all the people within that class, the judge has to say, yes, this applies to all those people, which means after that lawsuit, those folks can't sue again. So if a handful of people sue, then another handful of people can sue again. Therefore, when a state sues, and when several states sue, it doesn't necessarily cover every single individual within the state. That's a good legal question I'd want to dig into more, have somebody smarter than I am talk about it. But it does cover a whole lot of people, and that meant that there was a stronger incentive for the tobacco industry to come to the table and settle by spending a lot of money and doing real ads, and it actually did help reduce smoking in this country, and has helped fund some programs in this country. But Mitch, keep going with your point, or finish your point.
Just simply, actually, when you mentioned something about class action, at the federal level, you can't do class action anymore, right?
A state lawsuit can function as that, but a lot of this was happening. A lot of these lawsuits, like the New Mexico thing, it was in a state court.
Right. No. Right now it is. Right. Yeah. And one other quick thing is, there's a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Meta by the I probably mispronounced this, by the Rohingya minority at Myanmar for their toxic. Whatever you want to call it, whatever they've published on their Facebook, that the Myanmar government used that against the Rohingya people. That's a worldwide lawsuit.
Thanks. But Mitch, to your question, send me a citation or send me something if I'm missing something. But while the right-wing court has limited all kinds of access to federal courts, I think officially class actions are still allowed in federal court. And somebody can correct me. I'm offering legal advice here, and I'm not a practicing lawyer, but I used to learn that stuff. But Mitch, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate you.
Hey, appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Be well. Leah, you're on the air.
Yes. Hi, Jefferson. Thank you for taking my call, but I really do have just a few things to say. And first, that I am a total independent who can never forgive Congress or the Supreme Court for being complicit with Donald Trump and his cohorts because they have been aiding and abetting this economic treason by this administration. And what I mean by that is one of the first things that they failed to do, is when Elon Musk went ahead through so-called Doge, right? And they allowed people who are not a part of this government, had not been cleared, these computer hackers to literally go in and steal our data.
Yeah.
I'm talking bank accounts, real estate records, medical records. They're able to take this information and exploit people's vulnerabilities. And they know your beneficiaries, so they can literally steal our lives, our identity. And, I'm just, when you're talking about Trump and these cohorts using war contracts, ICE budgets, they're embezzling money. I mean, I'm sure that they've stolen trillions of dollars by now, and no one is doing anything. If Trump were raping a 5-year-old in front of them, Congress, they would find a way to get him out of there. And they need to use the same laws that's on the books. Forget this going in and out of court. Stop spending our money to fight cases that are already on the bank.
Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Appreciate the calls. We'll keep them at them. 202-808-9925. Yeah, ultimately, if Republicans will not hold Trump accountable or hold their team accountable, the only way to hold them accountable is to win elections. Larry from Fayetteville, North Carolina. You're on the air.
Hi, Jeff. Good hearing from you. I feel like you do a wonderful job. I know you heard that a million times, but I'm just going to say it again.
Not yet a million. We're driving towards a million. I feel better when it's been a million, but it's definitely not been a million.
All right, that's fair enough, Jeff. Jeff, what I'm concerned about is I'm so, I guess in a way, I'm more angrier at lawmakers and some of the other people that's responsible for us getting to this point, like the billionaires, the rich people, and the lawmakers, putting up what so-called screens. They say they got up guardrails and stuff like that to protect us against, people with all the money that can pay for everything. And really, in my point of view, we don't even have good smoking screens to protect us from an evil person coming in and doing whatever they want to do. The only thing you need is somebody that's lawless, that's not easily embarrassed, have no integrity, no morality, don't care about anything, just want to make money and do all the things that they want to do at the expense of us. And we're down. I wanted to know, do you think between now and the next election that somebody will wake up to this and say, hey, these so-called guardrails that we have, they're not getting the job done, man. We can't go through this again, man. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get out of this right now. So I'll listen to you, Jeff, and see what you say. Okay.
Yeah. So I heard you say, are the guardrails enough? Here's, I'll quote, I'll cite Lawrence Tribe. So Lawrence Tribe is a now most retired constitutional law professor at Harvard Law School. And he happened to be my constitutional law professor. Before that, there was an article in The Atlantic or The New Yorker that called him the 10th Justice, just because he was terrifically influential in his constitutional. He wrote the probably best thought of constitutional law treatise used in law schools, and brilliant guy. And he opened the class by, I'm stealing his material, but that's all right, I hope. He opened the class by telling the story of Odysseus, of Ulysses, who tied himself to the mast to avoid steering the ship into the rocks, trying to find the ephemeral siren song. The famous story, we will see it in a Matt Damon starring Christopher Nolan movie, starring Matt Damon, directed by Christopher Nolan. My job is not to plug that movie. But that famous Homeric story that the sirens would sing and the ship captains would steer their ships towards the siren song and crash on the rocks. And they were taught to, Odysseus was taught to hide his ears, but he wanted to hear the siren song, so he tied himself to the mast so he could hear the siren song but not steer into the rocks. So that's the role of the Constitution, is to tie ourselves to the mast. But at the end of the class, he said, there is no mast. We cannot tie ourselves to it. The only thing we have is us, we the people. I still believe that.
Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. So what do we call the really, really mind-bogglingly rich? You know, at the founding of the Republic, they were referred to as speculators or moneyed interest or aristocrats. In the years leading up to the Civil War, we called them the cotton lords and the plantation aristocracy. In the late 19th century, they were the robber barons. In the 1930s, FDR called them the economic royalists. But since the Reagan Revolution, we've just called them billionaires. And now, you know, some of them want to call themselves tech bros. Like, That's kind of a good thing, like tech is positive and bros, like Mark Zuckerberg saying we need more masculine energy in American business culture. So we need a new phrase. I would like to suggest the morbidly rich. Morbidly suggests unhealthy. And the vast riches that some of these people have is unhealthy to our democracy, particularly since 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court said that morbidly rich people can buy politicians. And it's unhealthy for them, too. So morbidly rich. There's an op-ed over at HartmannReport.com all about it. Check it out.
And we are back. It's good to be here. The conversation in the break came from a question, what are the guardrails? Are the guardrails enough? And I cited my law professor, Lawrence Tribe, who taught constitutional law, and used the story of Ulysses, Odysseus, tying himself to the mast to keep from steering the ship into the rocks. And that's the role of the Constitution, to tie ourselves to the mast so that the siren song of the mob doesn't steer ourselves as a country or get us to steer ourselves as a country, steer the ship of state into the rocks and destroy our most important principles, undermine our most important freedoms, our most important protections. And then we spend, the semester in the class, and his closing said, if you learned anything in this class, you learned that there is no mast and there are no ropes, that the right or wrong Supreme Court justices with the right or wrong theory can do, as Oliver Wendell Holmes said, what a judge will do is all I mean by law. That ultimately the only mast, the only ropes, the only guardrails is you. Is we the people. Ultimately, it is what we will put up with, what we won't put up with. The civil society structures that we build, the media organizations that we support, the methods and platforms of communication that we organize around and build up. This is our ability to vote, our ability to have systems that make sure those votes count, our ability to ratchet down the level of manipulation that happens so that the people's sober second sense can actually be applied. That's the only mast. Those are the only ropes. Our only guardrails are us, ultimately. Donna from Smyrna, Delaware.
Yes. Hi, Jefferson. How are you doing today?
Better now that I'm hearing you.
Look, Jefferson, every day I have to fight feeling bitter over what's going on in this administration. And especially something like the SAVE Act is because it's voter suppression. I really see it as voter suppression.
Of course.
But, yeah.
The people, to be clear, the people who drafted it see it as voter suppression. That's not you making a weird guess. That's how they saw it. But go on.
Exactly. That's the whole point. But I saw somewhere this week where the Selective Service is going to be automatically registering eligible males, U.S. citizens, and legal immigrants, 18 through 26, for the draft. They're doing it automatically. Mm-hmm. They're going to use Social Security Administration data, and they're going to use DMV data. So when you think about it, the Social Security numbers that we get nowadays, they're given to babies because you can't use a child as a dependent on your income taxes without them having a Social Security number.
Right.
So the government already has our Social Security data. They know where we were born. They know when we were born. They know that we're citizens.
Yep.
The DMV data, a lot of places where you go to get your driver's license or a state ID, they take biometric information, so they'll take your fingerprint. Mm-hmm. So they have that. So you can easily be identified for voting purposes using just, what the government has. If you have to have an ID, come with something with your name and your picture on it, and that'll be the end of it. They already have the information. But they would rather us go through all of these changes.
There you go, Donna.
It's ridiculous, And
there you go.
Like I said, I'm just trying every day not to be bitter because I'm not going to let them steal my joy, Jefferson. I'm not going to do it.
No, Donna, you're so on it. You're so on it. The voter registration system, when it's not an automatic voter registration system, and kudos to the states that are working towards that, and if you live in a blue state, you got a chance to get it done. And it's really worth doing. That's how it should work, right? If they can, and we can do the same thing with taxes. They want to do the same thing for selective service. Like, voter registration system is not a system to help people vote. The voter registration system itself was rooted in voter suppression. The voter registration system itself was to help keep people from voting who they didn't want to have vote. And if you're eligible, the government can know who's eligible. Let's make voting hassle-free. And the only counter arguments I know are two. Okay, one is just blatantly exclusionary, low-key or high-key racist, right? And it's like, that's basically, no, I don't want everybody voting, or at least elitist, right? The other one is more like, well, voting is a privilege. If people work harder at it, they'll be better at it. We want smarter voters. That gets over to sort of the elitist kind of racist thing. But going back to kind of poll taxes sort of situations. But that other one, here's the reality. The reality is, once people start voting, they get better. Once people start voting, they start paying more attention. Once people start voting, they can do better on a civic exam, knowing what's going on, because they are paying attention. And I'd actually love for a longitudinal study on this. Start with engagement. We will have better citizens. Don, I appreciate your wisdom.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Listen to Donna. Rooted in voter suppression. We should make it easier, more hassle-free. We'd have a better country. Democracy works better when more people do it.
Our book club book for today is Talk Radio's America by Brian Rosenwald, subtitled How an Industry Took Over a Political Party that Then Took Over the United States. This is from the introduction. August 1, 1988 marked the beginning of the long road to President Donald Trump. But even political junkies took little notice of the fateful events that unfolded that day as a failed disc jockey and former Kansas City Royals executive named Rush Hudson Limbaugh III made his national radio debut. Only a small audience tuned in. So poorly commemorated was the moment that we don't even know how many stations broadcast day one of Limbaugh's syndicated program. Limbaugh claims the show began on 56 affiliates, while other counts range from 57 and 87. From the beginning, the show was brash, entertaining, controversial, and boundary-pushing. Before Limbaugh, this sort of programming did not exist outside major cities. In 1983, there were just 59 talk radio stations nationwide, and the program on many of those stations consisted of advice shows, staged interviews, and caller-driven discussions of everything from neighborhood schools to abominable snowmen. Most talk radio programming focused on local concerns, and most of the industry's stars, such as Larry King and Sally Jesse Raphael, had left-of-center views but rarely shared them. At the time of Limbaugh's national debut, talk radio had negligible political impact. In talk radio hotbeds such as Boston, hosts might influence local and statewide policy debates, especially on visceral issues such as seatbelt laws, but talk radio was not a partisan force, and it had no role in national politics. In fact, the wall-to-wall conservative political talk stations that dominate the AM airwaves today were impossible until 1987, thanks to a regulation called the Fairness Doctrine. That year, however, the Federal Communications Commission eliminated the policy, which required broadcasters of opinionated programming on controversial issues to offer an array of viewpoints. In this more permissive environment, Limbaugh would go on to revolutionize the radio business. In doing so, he helped unintentionally to spawn a major new political player. Within a decade, the broadcast format he inaugurated aired on more than 1,000 stations and kept millions company as they commuted, worked, and shouted back at their radios. It took just a few years before conservative talk radio began to influence national politics and public policy. That influence only grew throughout the decades as the business changed. Over the course of the 1990s and early 2000s, the number of nationally syndicated talk shows rose dramatically, and the content of talk radio programs became increasingly political and conservative. Liberal pundits and some scholars agree on the broad outlines of the story, Conservative station executives conspiring with their Republican allies built a format modeled on Limbaugh's program, and thousands of Limbaugh wannabes cropped up all over the country. Executives, hosts, and politicians turned talk radio into an appendage of the Republican Party, using the platform to get Republicans elected and advance the party's agenda. The success of talk radio led to the development of partisan and ideological cable news networks, and some hosts complemented their radio shows with primetime cable programs. Eventually, this content found a home in the new digital sphere, with equally strident cheerleaders proliferating on blogs and other online publications. This narrative makes sense, especially to liberals. After all, many conservative media executives and their corporate political action committees donate to Republican candidates, and most hosts champion conservative candidates and causes. But this narrative is wrong. In reality, the story of talk radio's emergence as a popular conservative format and the impact it had on American politics weaves together two, But this narrative is wrong. In reality, the story of talk radio's emergence as a popular conservative format and the impact it had on American politics weaves together two distinct, complex tales. Neither has anything to do with the conspiracy to create a media servant of the Republican Party. The first describes how talk radio spread across America, in the process saving AM radio from financial ruin. Limbaugh had no intention of affecting elections or legislation, and no inkling that he could. Nor did any of his early successors. The executives who gave these hosts a chance also had no interest in political outcomes. Hosts and their bosses were in business. They wanted to captivate listeners and make money, and they discovered, essentially by accident, that conservative political talk in the mouth of an entertaining personality achieved this. Conservative hosts had strong opinions, but their primary goal was, and still is, financial gain. And it is because they realized financial gain that more and more stations invested in their style and content while divesting from competing formats. The second story concerns talk radio's transformation, after 1995, into an almost entirely conservative and doctrinaire medium that eventually spawned successors in other media, took over the Republican Party, and reshaped it in hosts' and listeners' image. Limbaugh was a great innovator, but he didn't change American media and politics all at once or on his own. In conservative talk radio's early days, hosts shared stations with liberal talkers and apolitical programs. There was not an immediate sense that conservative radio was the future either. But gradually, its success snowballed thanks to trial and error in the radio business, regulatory changes, political events, happenstance, and most importantly, listener behavior. Hosts also got a boost from marginalized conservative Republican politicians who realized that talk radio would enable them to circumnavigate the mainstream media, and deliver their message directly to voters. The book, Talk Radio's America.
No trial, just disappear.
We're back. Let's go straight to your phone calls. Let's go to Larry from Los Angeles. Larry, you are on the air.
Hi. I just wanted to point out to everybody that since Reagan was first became president, the Republicans have given us 5 recessions. The Democratic Party has given us 0 recessions. The Republicans have given us roughly 16 million jobs. The Democrats gave us 50 million. I'm trying to figure out why some of these people call and talk about all the bad things that the Democrats did. I don't get that. Right now, the Dow is losing roughly 600 points. And this is because Trump went to war. When Joe Biden was president, the Dow hit 45,000 for the first time. Today, it's at 45,375. 375 points were added to the Dow since Trump got back in the White House. And people are calling up and talking about the bad things the Democratic Party has done. I'm not a Democrat. I am an independent. I vote for good people. I haven't voted for a president who gave us a recession since 1980, when Reagan gave us a recession. And I haven't trusted the Republicans since. I vote for Democratic Party people because they create jobs. When the Democratic Party creates jobs, that draws people from all over the world to come into America. And in doing that, we do end up with a problem at the border. It's not because America is going bad. It's because America is doing good. When the Republicans get in there, people leave this country. Because this country starts going, do you know where, in a handbasket.
Well, Larry, finish your point, and then I'll reply.
Almost 50%, between 40 and 50% of our Nobel Prize winners came here from other countries. There's a brain drain that comes to America when the Democratic Party is in the White House. Those people start leaving. That brain drain is what made America great.
Yep.
And we should remember on what the Republicans have done to us, because this is what I do every time I go to vote. I remember what the Republicans do to us, and I make sure every time I get out there and I vote, because I don't want it to happen again.
Yep. No, Larry, I appreciate it. I appreciate the tale of the tape, the 5-0, the 50 million to 15 million, the 5-0 in terms of recessions, and I want to respond to something. I want to challenge you a little bit. And I love it every single time you call, and it helps us keep our eye on the numbers. It's budgets are moral documents. We can't just be liberal arts majors. We also have to be at least math and arithmetic curious to be good economic stewards. And I hugely appreciate the chances we have to have it back and forth. I think when you said two things, just a bunch of things, but two of them I want to also respond to. I don't see why people talk this trash about Democrats, call in to talk trash about Democrats when Democrats have been the ones that have created the jobs. Okay, and then said, I'm not a Democrat, I'm an independent. Or well, actually, you didn't say you're an independent, you just said I'm not a Democrat. I think your decision or whatever motive, I think the sorts of things that motivated your decision to not be a registered Democrat are likely related to why people think what drives people to call in and criticize the Democratic Party. And I think that includes any reason someone could criticize a large and old institution, politics, that as corruptible and as corrupted as it can be, not as it could possibly be, but it has the potential to be corruptible and corrupted. And also, just because of the zeitgeist that it's been, and we could spend an hour on this, but that, I want to give you a chance to respond, and then I'll probably say something in response to that, but that there's something kind of cool about, I'm not really a joiner. My identity contains multitudes. I'm not saying you're saying that. I think that feeling exists, that I'm a free thinker, and therefore I'm not a member of an organized party. Of course, you could also use that line. I'm not a member of an organized party. I'm a Democrat. And that combined with media assaults on Democrats, that combined with capital P and small p progressive folks feelings of betrayal towards Democrats that can be fueled and piled on by social media algorithms and legacy media and right-wing media, has created sort of this melange where, and also the conduct of the Democratic Party itself, thinking of itself as merely kind of a vessel and repository for whoever the well-funded campaigns are, and too often being kind of a grift for political consultants, as distinct from being a party that focuses on recruitment, that builds its brand, that runs large-scale voter registration drives, that runs large-scale service drives, right? Like to me, the Democratic Party should be strengthening as a grassroots organization and trying to 3x itself in terms of the amount of engagement it has. I could probably list 5 or 6 other reasons, but I think that those reasons that answer the question, are part of the answer to the question why even people who are sort of Democratic friendly will call us, I'm sick of Democrats, because are also linked maybe even to why somebody, even not somebody like you, but you say, I've chosen not to register as a Democrat. But Larry, please respond.
I chose not to register as a Democrat because when I became a voter, I had 2 choices. I could have chosen the Democratic Party, which still had a lot of Dixiecrats in it, and I said, I am not going to register as a Democrat.
Yeah.
Or I could have chosen a Republican. And my reasoning for not ever joining the Democratic Party basically is because I hear too many people, like the caller who claimed that that Democrats made all these mistakes. I don't want to be a part of that gas group. It's not that I want to be. I would love to be a part of the ruling Democratic Party who actually sees all these jobs created, who avoids recessions. But I don't want to be associated with that guy who called in and started talking about how bad the Democratic Party is.
I hear that. My guess is that guy's not a registered Democrat. But I hear you. And I will say, I think there are a litany of moral reasons why somebody should or shouldn't join a particular political party. And I don't make a moral judgment about that. Because I don't connect, I try not to connect a choice of political party too closely to identity. I try to think of it as a mechanistic, strategic choice to be in coalition with the people that I think are most likely to align with the best values to make things a little bit better. So I try not to throw a lot of stones about that, but I do find your question really interesting, Larry, as I typically do, and also just appreciate your tale of the tape.
I'm an American, and that's what I tell people
there you
when
go.
they ask me what party I belong to. I tell them that because that shuts them up.
There you go. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for being part of this community.
All right.
Be well. Michael from the Bronx. I can hear you.
I'll update you the email. Yeah, sure.
Michael, we can hear your conversation, which might make for interesting radio, depending on what you're saying. Go ahead, talk louder so we can listen in better.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's what happens when you have 2 different phone calls. You know, that was unexpected.
There you go. You're a popular guy.
We got. And I'm at work too. All right, let's do 2 messages. All right. The first one is about blatant hypocrisy. I mean, this is the all-time low. Recall early in this week, in fact, last weekend, Mr. Mar-a-Lago, or Mr. Bone Spurs, that's Trump, had the audacity to say, I'm glad Robert Mueller is dead. I don't care how bad of a relationship you may have had with somebody, or if they're the arch enemy. Anybody with a good sense of heart and soul would never, ever make such a statement like that.
Sure.
Because remember the one big word, karma. Now you fast forward towards the end of this week, and he's pushing to get that SAVE Act passed, which is really not Save America, but rather save Donald Trump's butt with all the stuff that's pending against him. And then he said, you know what? Try to cancel all your Easter festivities and observances. Stay here and get this thing passed and do it for Jesus.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You got the audacity to tell Congress to pass an utmost unchristian act, and you're going to put and invoke Christ's name into the unchristian act? You see how stupid that sounds?
No, there is a commandment against using the Lord's name in vain. People think it's like using it as a curse word. No, using the Lord's name in vain is about citing God to do something that is not about God, and they're doing it all the time.
To Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Donald Trump looks at the thou shalt nots and takes it as a to-do list. 202-808-9925. And we're back. Let's go to CJ. CJ, you're on the air.
Hey, well, my topic kind of dovetails in with that last bit that about Christianity.
Go ahead.
In the protest tomorrow, you will probably see some small groups of counter protesters, and some of them may be just like racist or whatever.
Sure.
But some of them will be Christians.
Sure.
They might have the Christian flag or something, or say, have posters saying God anointed Trump or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we'll be tempted to mock and jeer them.
Don't do it.
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Let's not do that, because Jesus promised them that they'd be persecuted in his name. They're looking for that.
Yep.
They want it. Don't give it to them. Don't give them grift to post on their social medias of, look how persecuted we are in his name. Don't do that. Be friendly to them. Maybe
no, the
even
protester who places a daisy in the barrel of the gun pointed at them is more persuasive than the protester who throws a rock.
Amen. But in particular, maybe have a pleasant conversation with them. Maybe show them some of the preachers that are talking about that.
I'll go you one better, CJ.
Might be Antichrist.
I'll go you one better, CJ. I so appreciate your call, because this came up before the last time that I was here, and we were in the run-up to the No Kings protest, and I forget, it might have been you, I forget who the caller was who suggested to say, hey, let's have American flags at every protest, and I love it. And I also, nobody has said this, I think Bible verses signs, I mean, only if that reflects your belief system, only do something you believe that's only true for you, that speaks your truth, but don't think that stuff's out of bounds. Like, be a steward of the land, cure the sick, heal the poor, thou shalt not kill, there are core principles that cut across religious ethics and morality included within the Bible that can remind people, that can be deeply rooted in some of the foundational principles of many Americans, and can be really persuasive. When people driving by, it's like, oh, maybe that reflects me. What I try to think about when I look at a protest is, how many people when they drive by could say, you know what, that reflects me. I should listen to them. I would like that group to be in a little bit more power. And think about how you cast that thing as if it were a movie, and you do it as an exercise of persuasion. CJ, last word for you.
Well, okay. I think you pretty much said it all right there.
Well, good. If I said it all, that's great. We could wrap the show, baby.
All right. I would love to have a talk sometime with some people about some strategies.
Keep doing it.
Some things that I've noticed about actually some Bible passages, but I don't want to say them on the air.
All right. But I think that's a worthy thing, because there's a thing. I mean, I know we have devout Christians who listen to this program, and we are not trying to break down the wall. We would like to rebuild the wall between church and state, but we don't want to tear people's ethics and ethical principles and morality down. We don't want to undermine people's most deeply held beliefs. In fact, what we want to try to do is channel all of our best deeply held beliefs, the ones that lift one another up, that express compassion, that make us better people, that help us turn the other cheek. We want to channel those things into a better nation, and that's what we want to do. And our movement should do likewise. And you should let your faith show if that manifests your truth. You don't have to impose on everybody else, but you should feel free to share that, not feel shamed about it. We'll be back.
All right.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. People in the Rust Belt states know all about tariffs. They know that tariffs kept jobs in the Rust Belt states for centuries, literally, that America was built on tariffs. It's one of the reasons Donald Trump got elected in 2016 was because he talked about tariffs. But for some reason right now, the Harris-Walz campaign, or Democrats in general, are reluctant to talk about tariffs. They call them sales taxes or something like that. They really need to be a little more straightforward because people, particularly in the industrial Midwest, or in the Rust Belt, as we call it now, are not dumb. They know what's going on. They know where we've been and how we got here. And I think it's pretty important to be talking about tariffs and what they are, how they work, and how they can bring manufacturing back home. I wrote a piece about it for Hartmann Report. It's titled, Why Trump is Wrong and Alexander Hamilton Was Right About Tariffs. And I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating at hartmannreport.com. Check it out.
Well, the headlines screamed war, but the truth took a nap. Well,
Cynthia
Fox lit the match.
from Denver, Colorado, you're on the air.
Hi, Jefferson. Hey, I'll call back. Some people called in and was talking about the Project 2025 and how the Democrats need to have something similar. I really believe that they should use everything Trump has done as a blueprint to correct and upgrade and bring young folks in because it's going to be their future. When I say young folks, I mean people 40 and below. And just follow the blueprint. He's broken so many laws. It's a no-brainer. Just everything he has done, get committees together, staff each department or each crime and to be addressed and just function from that. What do you think?
I think that that any voice, any effort to point us at a better version, including how do we undo the bad stuff, right? Symbolically or otherwise, right? Like, what's the Kennedy Center going to be called, right? What are we gonna do about that dumb extra building he's building? What are we going to do about it? He just decided to put the signature on the money, right? Put his signature on the money. They are engaged. They making a coin. Like, some of that's symbolic, but some of it's also what we stand for. One of the things we stand for is, in fact, no kings. It's not just a protest slogan. It's not just a protest slogan. That was the idea of the country. It's literally the idea of the country. And one of the main ideas for those who think this the meaningful part of this country was to manifest the best of Christian values, since that was just a conversation a moment ago. Like, no idolatry is a critical Judeo-Christian principle. And this guy is making himself into graven images. And so undoing, using that as some of the roadmap of undoing somebody's doing, I think that's smart. And then going beyond, it's not all responsive. Like, Trump's not the whole deal. What do we want our movement to stand for? What do we want democracy to stand for? What our country to stand for? What do we want to do? What's the future look like? Cynthia, last word for you.
Yeah, I think that we need to weave that information in as we rebuild. The country is hurting so much that we must jump in and rebuild just as quickly as they tore down. And as we do that, we must educate, not only what has happened, but how it happened and what they're doing currently to rebuild to prevent future, abuses like what Trump has done.
Appreciate the call. Let's go to George from Cripple Creek.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Good.
Well, I got a suggestion for a slogan tomorrow.
Okay.
It comes to the Iceman cometh, and the rest of it is, are you familiar with Das Horst Wessel Lied, the Horst Wessel song, the national anthem of Nazi Germany?
Oh, I couldn't sing it. I'm not sure if I've heard it before, but go ahead, George. I'm not encouraging you to sing
German, and for those who don't understand German and English, die Straßen frei, den braunen Bataillonen, die Straßen frei, dem Sturmanteilungsmann. Free the streets for the brown battalions, free the streets for the storm detachment man.
All right.
And that's what we'll get.
That's one of your signs.
Yeah,
All right, I appreciate it. What's your dog's name? Your dog either agreed or disagreed with what you had to say. I think your dog is conditioned when your dog hears Nazi propaganda, your dog is triggered.
No, she doesn't. No, she's a born American dog.
And what's her name?
Dixie Belle, because she was born down south.
Dixie Belle. And how old's Dixie Belle?
She'll be 10 in October.
And say again what kind of dog Dixie Belle is?
A Dachshund. In German, that means a badger dog, because they were bred to go down into badger dens and flush the badgers out.
I was today years old when I learned that.
They're little dogs, and they think they're big dogs.
All right. Well, keep training your dog to be anti-Nazi. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, I had two uncles who fought in Europe against the Nazis, so I don't have any sympathies with them.
Awesome. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Let's go to Mike from Madison, Wisconsin. We got 1 minute.
Jay, I was watching the news last night, and Trump administration to pay $1 billion to a French wind energy company to go away. Trump killed 2 windmill projects on the Atlantic coast, clean energy projects. And also last night it was said that so far since the Iranian war, oil and gas has made $63 billion in extra profit since the Iran war.
Wow.
Let's do away with fossil fuel tax subsidies. They get $35 billion a year from us. From 2014 to 2024, we gave them $300 billion. From 2025 to 2035 into the future, we're giving them $350 billion. Trump works for the fossil fuel industry. Let's do away with oil and gas subsidies. They do not need taxpayer money.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well. I use oil and gas, and they're doing pretty well. By the way, they're doing particularly well right now with paying $5 or $6 at the pump. Thank you, Mike.
We say fight back!
Our book for today on the Thom Hartmann Book Club is Kingdom of Lies, Unnerving Adventures in the World of Cybercrime by Kate Fazzini. This is from the preface. It didn't take me long in my career as a cybersecurity executive to figure out everyone was lying to me. The biggest lie of all came at the very beginning, that cybersecurity is hard, too hard, certainly too difficult for someone who lacks years and years of deep technical training. That is no place for writers. That thicket of incomprehensible jargon alone seemed meant to discourage outsiders like me from entering the field. They told me I could never hope to understand the terminology unless I'd worked around it for a very long time, unless I had a special and complicated certification, unless I knew how to take apart and reassemble a computer, unless I knew how to code in Python and could read it, interpret it, and spot problems on sight. And if I somehow managed to learn the lingo, the learning curve for the rest of it would prove insurmountable. Lies, lies, lies. It's unfortunate because there's a huge gap between the demand for cybersecurity workers and the people available to fill those jobs. I think one of the reasons for that is because people can't imagine themselves doing this kind of work. Can you use a smartphone, make a PowerPoint, think on your feet, ever organize a night out to the movies with your friends that went well and nobody crashed their car to or from the event? Welcome to the 21st century's hottest career path. Are you able to charm the pants off women? Did you escape an abusive marriage? Have you ever hosted a toddler's birthday party at your home? Honey, I want you on my cybersecurity team. After reading the stories in this book, you will understand that what makes cybersecurity complicated is the complexity of human beings. So if you know how to deal with people, you can handle internet security. If you understand what makes people tick, not only will you be able to recognize a threat, you'll be one step ahead of your adversary. During my career as a cybersecurity executive at multinational corporations, a journalist for Wall Street Journal and later CNBC, and a professor at Georgetown University, I've met a lot of fascinating people. From the hackers who perpetrate malicious attacks to the security professionals who try to prevent these incidents from happening, and the alphabet soup of government agencies that do damage control. At the end of the day, they're all fathers, sons, mothers, sisters, and spouses. In other words, people just like us. Yes, the white hats cross paths with black hats and change alliances more frequently than you might expect, but they're driven by the same desires as the rest of us, even if sometimes it feels as if everyone in cybersecurity is allergic to the truth. As a professional, I was told a great many lies about the field I've grown to love so much. After becoming a journalist on the cybersecurity beat, I was told even more. Here are a few. Let me introduce you to the hacker community. This lie is usually delivered with a wink and a nod from someone who thinks they know every hacker on the planet. The truth of the matter is there is no hacker community. Sure, the guys who make a splash at the big annual conferences might say otherwise, but every country, every state, every faction, every identifying group has its own community of people who hack computers. Some of them are extremely conservative. Others are massively liberal. Some fall in between. Some wear suits and ties and work as lawyers during the day, while others look like everyday citizens and have great people skills as they pursue the idiosyncratic agendas. Some are good guys who got fed up with the low pay and boring duties and became criminals. Some are criminals who ended up being good guys. Many start and end their careers on either end of that spectrum. Some, including many you'll meet in this book, are extremely proficient hackers who have no time or inclination to identify with any community at all. As a journalist, I was astonished at the number of people who came out of the woodwork to offer me exclusive access to the hacker community. I couldn't help but notice that the members of the source's hacker community were often people just like him or her. My point is there are many different types of people working in this field, and I can guarantee you that a lot of them are exactly like you. Here's another lie. He's a luminary in the cybersecurity field. He's probably not. Fame and luminescence don't typically intersect in this field. The people I've met who are actual geniuses aren't famous, and most of them don't have social media profiles. They tend not to pontificate on areas outside their expertise. The people who are constantly headlining conferences and who are so often offered up to me for interviews have less insight than those who stay underground. Anything a high-profile hacker is willing to share typically carries with it a massive and crystal clear agenda that I've learned to spot from a mile away. Even if a conversation is off the record, the intel coming from a top government official or other marquee corporate cybersecurity name carries little novel information. The only people who have illuminated the way for me in this world, and in this book, have been genuine practitioners who never held a C-level title. You've never heard of them, and because I've changed their names to protect their privacy, you probably never will. They are luminaries not because of the degrees they've collected or the events they've headlined, but because they carry a lantern that guides the path for others. These types of people typically don't have a public relations team. One of my favorite lies, he doesn't know what he's talking about. This one is usually delivered by someone who asserts that he or she knows the cybersecurity field better than anyone else. These people will brag that they know what it's like to be a hacker and can do things that no one else in the room can do. I'm always wary of those who try to establish their bona fides by discrediting the expertise of other cybersecurity professionals. The depth and breadth of this field is so vast that anyone who works in it is an expert at some part of it. And I have yet to meet someone who is an expert at all of it, not even close. Every view of an incident is informed by the reviewer, what he sees, what her level of expertise is, and that changes over time. It's like asking someone who lives in the Plaza to describe Manhattan. The book is Kingdom of Lies by Kate Fazzini.
We say fight back!
Awful by Dale Burnham.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
We have 1 hour more together, my friends. 202-808-9925. We have one more hour together, and that will be our final hour, not only with me, but also our final hour together before tomorrow's protest. For what do you stand? What do you want to do tomorrow, and what do you want to do after? And what do you want to invite other people to do tomorrow, and what do you want to invite other people to do after? Let's go, Randy, Huntington Beach, California. Go ahead.
Well, hello, Jeff. Your intro was almost perfect. Did you write my commentary for me? I mean, it's amazing. I want to start out with a question to the audience, though, which is going to make sense in a minute or two. And the question is, are you chirping as hard as you can? Now, just hang on to that thought. I want to encourage everyone who's listening to join in what's going to probably be the largest protest in America's history this Saturday. If you're listening and you want to oppose the cruelty and dishonesty and unconstitutionality that represent the GOP and Trump administration, come on out and make your voices heard. I've been to all of the protests in recent years, and they have been fun. They have been family affairs where children in strollers to elders in wheelchairs and walkers, and come on out. But I want to remind everybody that the audience, in our audience, and protesting is the first step. And it's going to send a message to the Republican Party, and it's going to send a message to the president. But if that's all we do, it's performance art. And in order to make changes in our electoral system, we need to do more than just chirp loudly. Now, we've got a nest of dark-eyed juncos on our patio. They're small birds, about the size of a sparrow. And when we walk out into the patio, they fly and they start chirping as hard as they can to distract us from their nest. But that chirping was performance art and did nothing to stop the crows who swooped in and ate their eggs. Now, in order to bring about change, the protests have to be the first step. But the second step is not difficult. We don't need to bench press 350 pounds or run a mile in under 4 minutes. What we need to do is make phone calls, drop off literature at our neighbors' homes, invite neighbors into our homes to meet candidates, donate money, and write letters. It's relatively simple. Now, the election season, it's a marathon. It's not a 2-hour sprint on Saturday. So I'm asking everybody, join in, take the first step, come on down, send a message to the administration. And there, you're going to chirp as hard as you can. But don't stop. Please get involved in local and state and national elections, because there are so many more of us than there are of the fascist clowns who are in charge right now. Together, one step at a time, we can make change, and we can bring back an America we can be proud of. Go ahead. End of rant.
Love it. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. Yeah, think of tomorrow's, each protest should be the beginning, not a culmination. It's a culmination of organizing, and that organizing should beget more organizing. Sign up for things. If you're part of an organization, use it as a chance to sign people up for things. Find new people to be new friends. Reconnect with old friends. Take an old friend and bring him with you. Something you can do right now, text somebody, call somebody, email somebody, say, hey, where are you protesting? Just that question. It can also be, hey, you want to come with me? Or it can be both. Where are you protesting? You don't have a place, come with me. Right? Hey, how are you getting there? You want to go with me? That simple thing, as we've heard from callers already, the biggest reason somebody doesn't show up is because they weren't asked. One of the most important reasons they do is because they were. When I realized that my appearances were going to be in the run-up to this thing, I said, all right, maybe the most useful thing I can do is put the time we spend together, that we spend together as a community, that I have a chance to guide our conversations for this week and a little bit of last week, to think about how tomorrow can be somewhat of a fulcrum. How can we build towards it, and what can we use that to turn some energy towards both things that our wise caller just offered. And here's one other move. If you don't have anything else to do, just go around to people and say, thank you for coming. Give them a fist bump. Maybe shake their hand, whatever they prefer. Thanks for coming. Just thanks for coming. You say thanks for, before people think you're an organizer, you say thanks for coming enough. But at the very least, interact with other people. And you're thinking about signs. We've heard of wonderful signs. And some of the signs I like are things that also educate, communicate, recruit, engage the people who will be there. Use it as a movement building opportunity. Dave from Auburn, California.
Hi, I got a lawyer question, but first I got some suggestions for some signs.
Okay, give me your favorite two.
The first one is Donald Trump's head sticking out of a toilet. It says, "Flush me," if you have any caricature artists out there. The next one is a wine bottle with an oversized cork. He's trying to put the cork back in the bottle via the nuclear deal that he scrapped with Obama.
Okay.
And the third one is for everyone. You all complete me. Like the last guy said, I mean, we're together as one. And my lawyer question is, when they have these phony criminal indictments of all these people and they all get thrown out of court, can't they do something to these attorneys to keep them from coming back with these? Can't they sanction them or fine them or throw them in jail or do something to them?
Who's the they? When you say when they do that thing, who are you to be more specific?
The courts of the court itself.
Right. When you say when they bring these phony lawsuits, what are you saying? Who are the they?
The Trump administration has all these criminal indictments against all these people, and they all get thrown out of court.
Yep.
Can't the judge do something to the attorneys so they don't?
Yeah, if it's a violation of bad faith.
Go after the lawyer's license or something.
Yeah, if there's genuine bad faith, what is it? Also Rule 11 violation. There is some recourse, but the bar is pretty high. I mean, the lowercase b bar. But I do think that this is one place where lawyers should be active, where bar associations should be active to hold people up to their higher standards, right? And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Let's go to Beachside Bill. You're on the air, my friend.
Afternoon, Jefferson. Hope everybody's well out there. You know, I'm going to get the Snow Kings here. So tomorrow I'll be out in Cocoa, Florida at US 1 and 520, and I'll be calling into Sirius XM Progress. They're going to be live from 12 to 2.
Nice.
Joe Sudbay. So if anybody's going to, I'll be calling it. I've called into every one of them. So that's my thing tomorrow. I've been protesting since Vietnam. I document. I bring my camera. I got a couple batteries, and I just fill it. I document everything I can. So, but today I donated blood this morning. I donated my 161 and a half gallons of blood. That's where I'm at now.
How many gallons today?
Well, today was a quarter gallon. Every time I donate, it's 1 quarter gallon.
Quarter gallon.
Every time I donate. So I had my T-shirt on. It says 8647. 86 means to get rid of. I can't think of when you're 86 something,
86
you get rid of it. I think it's.
I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me. I feel like a real dum-dum. So quart. Is the origin of the word quart the same as the origin of the word quarter? It's got to be.
Yeah. Well, quart. Yeah. Quarter. Yeah. Quarter. Yeah.
It's got to be, right?
Quart, yeah.
I didn't. Did everybody already know that? Am I the only person who didn't know that? Forgive my interruption. Finish your point, B-side Bill.
No, you're right. You're right. I think you're right. Yeah, you're correct.
Maybe I don't know if that just clicked for anybody else out there. Maybe I'm the only one who's slow. But anyway, go ahead, Bill.
So I had my T-shirt on 8647, and then I had my it says the word F with F Trump on it with the red hat. So I'm going to be putting those out later, and I'll be enjoying them tomorrow. So
all right, bring friends.
Everybody donate blood. Yep, I will bring friends. I'm going to meet some there.
Be well. Tomorrow, I love you tomorrow. You're only a day away. That's from Annie.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Tomorrow, tomorrow, I love you. Tomorrow, you're always a day. That's from Annie. I don't know whether to say you're welcome or I'm sorry. It's a mixture here. It's a back and forth. You take the good, but take the bad. That's also a little bit of song from a fun show that had Tootie in it when I was a kid. Mike from Seattle, you're up.
Yeah, I wanted to I'm sorry. Larry is such a big resource that we have here. And then his, reticence about participating as a Democrat. Well, he doesn't have to become a Democrat to go to the local meetings every month and actually report on that stuff.
Good point.
If he does that, he said he didn't mind being part of the larger, more sort of Democratic Party, but he could build a way with a way to inform everybody. He has the power and the knowledge to actually make changes in the Democratic Party because of the statistics and all that kind of stuff he does. I would love having that kind of information.
There you go, Mike. Good
I
plug.
know, because I sit in those meetings every month.
Yep.
And I would love to have that information.
No, as we're thinking about how to recruit and who to include in a political party, who would you want to be in part of a political party? Right, and I even think about that, and I think you want people who are of goodwill, who want the world to be better, who have something to bring to bear, who can make us all a bit smarter, who can help us think better about the future. If you just did that, if you didn't even think, if you just focused on that, like basic human traits, try to recruit for basic human traits, and then said, all right, folks, what do we want to do together? How do we want to make this world a little bit better together? You end up coming up with some stuff that'd be pretty good. That's the party I want to be part of, but thank you, Mike.
Well, he's doing it now. I'd like to see him do it more locally. And then actually, because I think he lives in California, they would love it too.
This is the locally thing. I want to hit that because we haven't talked a lot about that since I've been on this week.
I'm a local guy, so that's what I mean.
No, exactly. That's the. I will say. I probably should say it every day, but where you can have the greatest leverage is in fact getting involved in your local community or an adjacent community or 2 counties over, and where we can build it brick by brick. That's the way to impact. In my view, that's the impact. That's the way to best impact national policy over time, and to have a resilient movement that can make change and have something that's not only kind of tilting at the winds of wherever the big media is guiding the public opinion. But Mike, thanks. Let's go to the next caller. Tom from Celebration, you're on the air. Tom? Okay, we'll go back to you. Jeff from Portland, Oregon, my kind of town.
Hey, happy Friday, Jefferson. I'm not going to have a lot of time. I'll try and squeeze it in. But heck of a job hosting as always. Tomorrow's a big day. We rise up nonviolently to say no kings, no autocrats, no oligarchs, no wars, no ICE, no Gestapo, no concentration camps, no fascism, and no dictatorships. Besides rejecting Trumpism and the cruelty, chaos, and corruption that he and his greedy, self-serving sycophants have wrought, Jeff, will strengthen our collective backbone and, most importantly, the backbone of the Democratic Party. And start to return the power to the people, because as Senator Chris Murphy said the other week, we're not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We're in the middle of it. So in my opinion, Jeff, besides a progressive affordability agenda, we need the Democratic Party to once again become the unequivocal anti-war party. And the time for cautious incrementalism is past. The progressive ideas and anti-war strong anti-war stance is the way to go.
You got it out there, Jeff. Always well prepared, always well delivered. Thank you so much for being
Missed my
part of
opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. So MAGA Mike and the Republicans want a religious test for people running for public office. They want to know that you are sufficiently Christian to be worthy of being elected. Right. MAGA Mike is one of these 7 mountain evangelicals. There are 7 domains where these dominionists believe that we need to have religion completely take them over. Education, religion, family, business, government and military, arts and entertainment, and the media. Seriously. This is not what Jesus was preaching when he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar and unto God what is God's. This is the opposite, in fact, of what Jesus was teaching. It's the opposite of Matthew 25, where Jesus said the only way to get to heaven is by feeding the hungry, healing the sick, helping the poor. This is counter-Christian, anti-Christian, in fact. In fact, I think you could say it is the Antichrist's work. There's a piece about it over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Welcome, everybody. Let's go to Robin. Robin, you win the Most Patient Listener Award. You're on the air.
Morning, Jeff. Thanks for the week. It's been outstanding. I'm going to chip in and support one of the themes of the show, something I've been working on for a quarter of a century, just to spin off a quarter concept. I would like to dismantle, not a myth that takes a long time, but a presumption, and that is because you have larger numbers at a rally or event or a protest, you will have larger numbers of people who vote, and that's really not the case. Okay, so this call is about building a bridge between large political events and a small political event, a vote. And I think historically speaking, that large political events only, as the only mechanism, do not change government, but large numbers, obviously, of small events voting does change government. So in reading through the indivisible stuff, there's just not enough of a call or hue and cry to get engaged in the voting process. 50-50 plus 1 is obviously based on the singular vote. So like Randy, I'm asking everybody to roll up their sleeves, get engaged in the voting process.
Sure.
And my closing line is a conceptual one, and that is, it is not what you bring to the protest, march, or rally that is critical. It's what you bring home from the protest, march, or rally. And that's where we just need continuity, and we need to keep on going forward. So I just wanted to chip in that way, and we gotta investigate and keep our eyes open on the entire voting process and the mechanism. Don't give that ground up to the Republicans.
Thank you,
That's
Robin.
about all.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
I want to cite Rick Warren. Rick Warren's a mega-church preacher. He wrote A Purpose-Driven Life, best-selling book. He gave the convocation invocation at the first Obama inaugural. I had a chance to see him there on the very, very cold day in Washington, D.C., and that was the dawn of a presidency far more benevolent, far more strategic, and far better than the one we are currently living within. But Rick Warren has a thing. He has a teaching. I don't mean a religious teaching. I mean a strategic teaching. Whatever one's faith, in terms of movement building strategy, this cat's pretty good. And he says movements take a mixture of small groups and big groups. That a movement requires that mixture of both that big group and the small group. So Saddleback Church, they have, 80,000 people go to that darn thing? It's a stadium church. I don't know. It's a lot of people, right? But they also have small groups. They call them groups of 8. There was an article, I think it was in the Atlantic, might have been New Yorker, I get them confused, and decade and a half ago, maybe more. It was called the Cellular Church. This is for the precinct people out there, for the strategists out there, for the organizers out there. Hear me out on this one. For the would-be strategists and organizers, hear me out on this one. So Saddleback Church organized, and Cellular Church, I thought it meant like cell phones. It didn't mean anything about that. It meant organized by cells. They did a thing. They spent real time and energy organizing around groups of 8, called groups of 8, because guess how many people were in each group? 8. And those people would get together. Now, they didn't have to get together for Bible study. They'd get together on a common interest. They'd get together around needlepoint, hiking, basketball, whatever it was, right? Book club. They have to get, I think it was they got together weekly in their groups of 8. And they would spend real time organizing these groups of 8, getting people to say, hey, do you want to be part of one? What do you kind of want to do? And then they'd match people up to get them in these groups of 8. And then they did some research on that. And they learned that the best indicator of whether or not somebody was going to volunteer for the Saddleback Church was whether or not they were a member of a group of 8. Not if they had extra time, not how long they'd been a member of the church, not if they were a person who had been volunteering for other organizations, but just whether or not they were a member of a group of 8 was the best indicator. They looked at donation history. The best indicator of donations, both frequency, likelihood, and amount, was not somebody's wealth, or if they gave to other organizations, or again, their duration of the church. The best indicator, best predictor was whether or not they're a member of a group of 8. Tomorrow is a large group activity. One thing that we have to do, this show is a mixture of a large group and small group activity. I agree with our last caller. You also have to think about your individual actions, your voting, the work that you need to do or can do to support the sanctity, support the security, support the engagement, the low hassle for elections. But let's also think about the small groups we can be part of. That could be joining a nonprofit, it could be joining an indivisible group, that could be joining a book club. We should be, and again, if I were advising whoever ran the Democratic Party, or whoever ran the political party we thought would give democracy the best chance, I'd be working on organizing, let's call them groups of 8. Maybe there'd be groups of 10. But small groups that would get together. Movements require big group activity and small group activity. It's going to require big groups tomorrow. And let's also think about, as our caller said, as Robin said, not only what you bring to it, bring more to it, but also what you bring home from it. We'll be right back. It's Tom's show. It's your show.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Speed round coming up next, and the big finish. Won't be with you long. It's been wonderful.
Today in the Thom Hartmann Book Club is The Black Panthers, Portraits from an Unfinished Revolution, edited by Briasha and Yohuro Williams. This is from Chapter 1, In Defense of Self-Defense, Pathways to the Black Panther Party. People joined the Black Panther Party for many different reasons. The moment of politicization was different for everyone, but a few were commonly shared, including the 1963 bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, and the 1965 Watts Urban Rebellion. A more general sense of frustration and alienation compelled others to join the Panthers' ranks. The party exerted an enormous pull on the imagination of the members, especially those who had experienced police brutality. In the rebellious spirit of the times, the party's bold stance on self-defense resonated with those seeking fresh alternatives for achieving social justice and black liberation. Party members expressed a deep appreciation for other aspects of the Panthers program, including its community service programs, which grew out of a genuine love for the people. My neighborhood friend, a sister that I've known since I was about 11 years old, said, "Claudia, I want you to go with me. We're going to go and hear these Panthers speak at PS 92, which was an elementary school in our community." I said, "Okay, I'll go, I'm down." I listened to these brothers speak and I heard the pitch. I saw the determination and I saw the compassion. I thought, wow, this is the feeling that I used to get when I went into clubs and popped my fingers and got on the dance floor. It was the same feeling, except it was bigger for me now. It was bigger than me. It was full of love of the people. No longer did we have to argue and fight about, what are you looking at me like that for? Or don't step on my sneaker, or this is my block. Now we really had something to fight for. We had a people to fight for. This is bigger than any gang or club. We had a goal. We had something to look forward to, which was the betterment of black people. It was most definitely something that I was searching for, but I didn't yet know what that I was searching. I didn't find it. It fell on me. That was the first meeting. That's what actually started the wheels in my mind for me to become political. I was rank and file. I did a lot of things. The easiest way to say it is just to imagine worker bees. You got one queen, everyone else works. Rank and file. Those were the worker bees. We did it all. The one thing I enjoyed the most was teaching the political education classes on 7th Avenue in front of the Harlem office. That was the most fruitful. But anything I did, it was for the love of the people. Wherever I was sent, or whatever I had to do, it didn't matter anymore because it was for the love of the people. We were trying to get the word out. If I had to sell 125 papers in a day and I got close to that goal, then I did a good job. I was originally from Queens and came out of the Corona branch of the Black Panther Party. When the Panther 21 were arrested and went to jail, in order to keep those offices open and functioning, Panthers were sent all over the city to Harlem. I was one of the Panthers that ended up in the Harlem branch. That's how I got to be there on Wednesday nights to give the PE classes, the political education classes. I was extremely nervous the first time, but once I found my voice, then it went like clockwork. A lot of the people in the community who were just walking by were like, well, let me stop and see what this little girl is talking about, because I was indeed a little girl at that time. We started off every PE class with a 10-point program, and we ended every PE class with, okay, let me hear from you guys. What do you want to see different in your community, and how are you living? Then we would get the feedback, and then we would know how to concentrate our efforts. Rent strikes were crazy, because if you had to live like that, why should you pay rent? We did clothing drives, we did food drives, we did, of course, the breakfast program. There were a lot of other things that happened, and they might have been more meaningful, but those PE classes stayed with me. We were outside on the street in front of the office. When you were giving a class or you were having a talk inside the office and there were only Panthers around you, the feeling was just different than outside on the street. The Panthers knew what you were doing because they were Panthers and they were doing the same thing. Outside, there were constant questions and answers with the people. You had to give yourself up when you were outside in that crowd. You never knew who was going to say, we don't care about that, we don't care about you, you need to go away. There were a lot of people that just did not know where we were coming from and were afraid that if they were seen in the office or if they were seen asking questions, that they'd get reprisals, that they'd end up getting hurt. They were afraid. Things went so fast. Time seems to accelerate when you're always looking over your shoulder. At this time, it was all-out war against the Panthers, and brothers were being shot down in the street or set up or going to jail for years. We have brothers in jail since that time, 40, 41 years. We've had brothers that we've lost on the inside that we can't let the world forget. The government said, okay, we're going to lock them up and throw away the key and no one will ever care. But it's not true. We want them out. We want freedom for all political prisoners. We don't want any more of them to die on the inside. That's the biggest injustice. There were times when our cadre consisted of almost nothing but women, and that was when the brothers were locked up or had to go underground. I remember being on a front line against a policeman on horseback and being 6 months pregnant. What we wanted was a simple street light, and we got the community out there and we blocked traffic. I didn't know whether I was going to be trampled, my baby killed, but I knew I had to be there. I was an active member of the party from 1968 to 1971, and in those few years, I aged 10, 15 years. We didn't have much time to be little girls. We went straight to womanhood. Talking about these things is bringing up all of these feelings, though I hadn't thought about or touched on them for a long time. It seems that as you get older and you look back on the things that you've done in your life, you say, oh my God, I could have gotten killed then. When you're young, fear is not really in your vocabulary, and once you look back, you wonder, why wasn't I afraid? We didn't have much time to be afraid. It was all about survival. The Black Panthers. Help support Progressive Radio. If you're listening to us on a commercial station, call their advertisers and let them know you're listening. If you're listening to us on Pacifica, one of our many nonprofit stations, please support them when they do their fundraising drives. Thanks for supporting Progressive Talk Radio and tag You're It. You know, corporate raiders, when they acquire a company, basically strip it down. They take everything of value out of it, put it in their own pockets, leave just a husk of a company. I watched, Bain Capital do this with Clear Channel. In fact, they just ran it into bankruptcy, and they run off with all the cash. Well, that's what Donald Trump is doing to America right now. He's basically behaving like a corporate raider, taking all the assets of this company and handing as many of them as possible off to billionaires and shutting down programs that benefit average working class people. This is, an all billionaire cabinet or largely billionaire cabinet with a billionaire president, and they're dancing to the tune of the billionaires. It shouldn't surprise us, I suppose, but there's a whole article about it over in my Daily Take. It's titled "Trump's Hostile Takeover of America: The Corporate Raiders' Final Heist," over at HartmannReport.com. Check it out.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to go briskly so we can clear the board, and then the big finish. Call number here is 202-808-9925. Dale from Hatley, Wisconsin, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I think it was very insightful of a previous caller in days past saying Trump is trying to destroy the TSA workers union by TSA workers not getting paid for their work. This is right in line with what Trump had said in the past, that he is going to put labor in its place, not just unions, but all workers. That place that he wants is to put workers' necks under his foot. Your thoughts, Jeff?
No, I think that one of his moves that's one of his more devious moves, one of the MAGA movement's more devious moves. We have a caller that calls in from time to time. I think they call in a couple different radio shows. That is a Teamster guy who calls in. He's a Trump voter. And one of the more devious moves is with cultural issues, and then a couple of union-specific moves, like, I'm going to take down NAFTA. I'm going to replace it with NAFTA-ish, right? Whatever he came, it's pretty close. But by making a case, by aiming at trying to get building trades voters, largely through culture, a little bit, maybe with a couple of tax cuts that touch them. Mostly it's for the wealthiest of the wealthy, but a couple of those could impact a six-figure earner, which isn't most labor union members, to be clear. But is then to try to get some of those votes. But the reason it's so devious, because you're exactly right. This movement doesn't want card check. This movement doesn't want a TSA union. This movement doesn't want public or private labor, really, right? This MAGA movement wants to erode that stuff, wants to take it down. And we haven't had enough of sort of renewed, vigorous private sector union growth in this country. And maybe as importantly, a media that's covered some of that and help educate people and help people understand the importance and growth and the rise in that movement and the challenges it faces. And once that erodes further, it just makes it easier for them to win the trench warfare they've been working on for, let's call it, 46 years. So I guess that's my way of agreeing with you, Dale.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate it. Let's go to Howard from Seattle.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
Hey, a couple things. One, this is sports athletes. Some athletes go by shortened names. Alex Rodriguez went by A-Rod. Mm-hmm. And actresses, Jennifer Lopez goes by J-Lo.
Yep.
I wondered this. Now I have two things. This is one of them.
Okay.
I just wondered why we didn't do that with Trump and make it, T-Rump, and the T stands for traitor or treason.
I hear you. That's one way to go.
Yeah, there's that. The other piece.
I thought you were going to go D-Rump.
No, well, I didn't think of that. But
I'm just, I'm a poet. But go on. You had two things.
Okay. So the second thing is. And this is the thing that I see that it's a missing for me. And it's the missing thing that we're not talking about is the word honor or honorable, and I looked it up in the dictionary, and honor is, it's integrity, it's high moral standards of behavior, good name in public. Get a name and respect that's given to someone who's admired. And I started thinking that the missing of honor, and I started thinking about presidents who reflected to me what honor is all about. And I started thinking about Harry Truman, even Kennedy to a certain extent.
Sure.
LBJ, I don't know about his honor, but I know that his deeds were honorable.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went to Nixon, and he's the first president in my lifetime that didn't reflect honor at all. Mm-hmm. And then Carter got elected, and I thought Carter actually represented some integrity and some honor. And then we went to Reagan, and again, the collapse of honor into dishonor continued on into Bush. And then, Clinton did some dishonorable stuff. And then we went into Bush Jr., more dishonor and lying. And Obama, I thought, did some honorable things, but there are things that I don't know about. And then we went into Trump. And again, there's no honor here at all. And the question I have is, how do we return, or how do we create the idea of integrity and honor for people who are running for office? Because as long as that's missing, I don't know that we're going to ever get anywhere.
You've hit one of the deep themes. As I think about the deep themes of where we need to, not even from a partisan standpoint, one of the deep themes that we need to work on as a nation, what are strong cultural, if you were going to have a strategic planning retreat for the United States of America, and invite a representative sample, say, oh, folks, what do we have to work on? And you came in and say, hey, what are our mission, vision, and values? People have been part of those retreats, right? And you'd lay out some stuff. Some of that's written out in the Constitution, but let's say we had to really do this as kind of a company, as kind of a country retreat. And you had a good facilitator, and you're going through it. And then you'd say, all right, where are the places we're falling short in our mission, vision, and values? And let's stick with those values for a moment. I think honor would be one of the places that we would say as a country, we're falling short. Now, I differentiate integrity and honor a little bit, okay? They're overlapping concepts. They're both good things, but integrity a little more about wholeness, and honor about adherence to sort of a standard of conduct or something that matters more than just your own personal ambition or whatever, right? Those are two important concepts. I want to hold on to your point of honor. I think that a cross-partisan, transpartisan group of people would acknowledge that as one place as a country that our culture is lacking a little bit. And Trump has exploited that. Because it's almost like, well, if honor's out the window, let's just get what we can get. If the only thing that we need to worship is money, let's go after the great golden idol, whoever promises or wields or is willing to put their graven image on the golden idol. And that has impacted our, I think, national self-esteem and sending signals to the next generation that all they got to do is look smacks and like be crypto millionaires. And I'm not kidding. Like, I don't know if you guys have followed this looks-maxing stuff, right, which is now getting more and more media play of young males who are, and I mean, body image has been inflicted upon women for generations and generations. It's now spreading, but in toxic ways, and young men who are literally having their friends break their cheekbones and jawbones so that they can grow back stronger, who are having really dangerous plastic surgery so they can be giga chads, so that in Instagram and TikTok they can look better, because we've eroded so much our definition of the good, our shared conception of what it is to be a person in this country that's worthy of esteem, that we think it's just about what you look like and how much money you make. And that is a cross-partisan, transpartisan scourge on the country. And at that company retreat, we need to identify it, and then we need to figure out what we do better. And that means we need to lift people up who are actually the kinds of examples that we want to be exemplified. And that would be elected officials sometimes. We all fall short. I fall vastly short, to be clear. I wouldn't hold myself out as a role model, but how could we at least identify role model traits that are the kinds of things that we want to reward as a country? And it's not just the ability to punish your enemies, reward your friends, get as much money as you can, and look beautiful. It can't be that. It can't be that. That's not enough to build a country on.
That's true. And there's something about keeping your word in all of that. That's part of the honor thing. And it's also knowing, I guess, heartfelt what's right. I think people know what's right in their heart. Whether they act on it or not, it's another story. And maybe some people don't know. I don't know, but I wanted to throw all of that out there for you.
Appreciate it. Corey, you're up.
Good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
I have a comparison to make to our, the government just recently declared itself insolvent, just last week, I think it was, and how that mirrors, capitalists, like vulture capitalism, how like Eddie Lampert, basically went in and just destroyed Sears, sucked all the wealth out of Sears, out of Kmart and everything. They just go in and saddle them with debt. First, I'll be your savior. I'll come in, I'll help you restructure. Then, only close to 50% of the shares, he could make, his vote carried weight. So they, next thing they loan him money, they increase the interest rate, and they're saying the company can't pay. Oh, sell off Craftsman, sell off Kenmore, sell off all your name brands and stuff. Next thing, the thing just closes down. Well, that's exactly what's happened to the government. Look at the entire national debt is basically the aggregate total of all the tax cuts, and the borrow and spend policy is the driving force behind that. They always say, well, if we cut these taxes, it'll
You're
increase.
listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We'll be right back. Speed round. Corey, finish your thought.
Oh, anyway, but just like how, they always, the borrow and spend tax policy, they always say, if we cut these taxes, it'll increase economic growth so much that they'll pay for themselves.
Yeah, well, I get the point. I get the point, Corey. And I haven't said, we've had 2 callers on it, and thank you so much for your call. But the Treasury Department did call out the fiscal catastrophe, declaring the United States insolvent with a negative net position of $41 trillion, liabilities $47 trillion, far exceeding assets of $6 trillion. Of course, then this is right after Trump put out a request for $200 billion to attack Iran and undermine the United States global position and put us at great risk and cost of lives. And Tom talks about this a bunch with his 2 Santa Claus idea. That and the way I'd put it is that the MAGA movement, the right-wing movement, the Republican Party, in its modern conception, is sort of work to make government not work so that it can prove that government doesn't work. And then so we can continue that flywheel. But I don't want to wax too long because I want to hear from all y'all. AJ from La Mesa.
Jeff, thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
As an attorney, when the 6 neo-fascist religious zealots of the Supreme so-called court issue their inevitable ruling banning mail-in votes posted before Election Day but received after, what would happen if one or more states ignored that ruling, citing the plain language of the Constitution and history? Not that there's any likelihood of that actually happening.
Ignored which ruling?
The inevitable ruling about to be handed down that ballots mailed by Election Day or before Election Day, but received by the registrar of voters of that county after Election Day cannot be counted.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, ultimately, it will be sort of an enforcement issue, and who the president of the United States is matters, okay? Because that's how enforcement works. But generally speaking, and this is why I think this will be an overweening, if the U.S. Supreme Court rules in such a way, be an overweening exercise of their power, because state elections are supposed to be run by states. That said, states are supposed to be subordinate to the supremacy of the U.S. Constitution. So you and I both have the same prediction of what would actually happen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Joy from North Fork Valley, Colorado.
Hello. Yep, there I am. So ancient archaeology, that this goes back countless millennia. We are not alone on this planet. We have not been alone on this planet. It's abundantly clear. You can see everywhere and all over the planet. And we have been invaded, and our government has certainly been invaded. We are little 3-dimensional beings, but the universe is so much greater than that. And here we have these constitutional literalists giving unconstitutional immunity to a 34-time convicted felon and sexual predator. We are being manipulated, and we need to talk about it, and we need to expose it. Okay.
Thank you. And I will say, Joy, you bring fascination. I don't know if you bring truth. You bring interest, and you definitely bring joy. Thank you so much. Great to hear your voice. We'll be right back after this music. Speed round, the big finish. I'm a short timer, folks.
Hey, thanks so much for sharing our program and for reaching out to our stations and sponsors and letting them know that you're listening. It really means a lot to us. So have you noticed that the Republicans are pretty much not talking about a constitutional convention anymore? They used to be gung-ho to rewrite the Constitution. You know, they wanted to put corporate personhood in there. They wanted to change it so that women can't vote. They wanted to do away with the election of senators, repeal the 17th Amendment, take us back to them being appointed by the states. They had all these weird, they wanted to outlaw labor unions, all these weird ideas, but they've stopped talking about it. I mean, they're still moving forward on it, but it's not. Project 2025, for example, you know, their ultimate talking document does not have one single mention in it about a constitutional convention. Why would that be? Well, it's because the Supreme Court is doing their work for them. I mean, you know, just they have overturned Article 2. They've overturned the 1st, 4th, 9th, and 14th Amendments. They've overturned Article 1, Section 7. All the details of this whole thing are over at HartmannReport.com. You got to check it out.
We are back.
They say we're small.
And we appreciate you. Let's go to Julie from White Clouds, Michigan, I believe.
That's where I'm at. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
I just want to real quick tell you my couple of signs I'm bringing tomorrow. The first one says, supercalifragilistic Epstein's buddy Trump us.
Okay, that's what?
And the plus is in green. That's on the front. The back says, callous plus fragile equals seriously unfit. Invoke the 25th. The other one says, the front side, learn civics, teach civics, save democracy. Backside says, democracy requires participation.
Thank you, Julie.
I called.
Oh, I thought that was the reason you called. Be quick. We're almost at the end.
Nope. Yep, the reason I called, Larry, was talking about not joining the party, and I didn't for a long time. I was an independent, but once I did, I found out the Michigan Dems, when you go to the convention, it'll be April 29th, they have caucuses you can join. There's different people, and there's 26 separate caucuses from Anishinaabe, the Black Caucus. I'm in the Cannabis Caucus. I'm in the Progressive Caucus. There's Environmental Energy.
The Cannabis Caucus probably has the best parties. Go on, Julie. Finish your thought.
We do. Yeah, we do. But there's 26 different, there's the Justice Caucus, LGBT allies, the Michigan Dems, the College Democrats, any rate.
So you can find the sub-party that fits you best.
Yes, and you can, and it's the best way to multiply your power.
I appreciate it, Julie. And here's a way to understand our, and I learned this from a friend of mine when I was in my 20s. I should have learned it in my early 20s or my late teens. But in a first past the post system, a European system typically, they are a post-election coalition government. Everybody votes for their party. You have 5 or 6 or 10 of them, 4 parties, 5 parties that have some representatives, and they get together and say, okay, we got to create a governing coalition. We are a pre-election coalition government. We build our coalitions in the context of primaries. And then that team hopes it can win some elections. So if you're part of that coalition, you can do that in your own little sub-party, then try to shape that platform, try to shape that leadership crew, try to shape those priorities. Let's go to Jennifer from Tacoma.
Hi. Thank you so much, Jefferson, for all this great work that you do.
Thanks.
I'm calling. I listened to the other day a discussion regarding how they determine how many attendees there are at events like No Kings. And they had all kinds of strategies. But I'll tell you who does know, and that is the cops and the Fed, because every single cell phone that is out there is all the data is collected at every single event. So I'm just really calling to ask, but really to implore people to leave your phone at home. Even if your phone is turned off, it's being pinged. Leave it at home, get a Faraday cage, whatever, but protect yourself. You know, that's something that all of us can do, and we can deny them access to our information that's in a way. In solidarity, everybody.
Thanks for the call. Let's go to Larry. You're up.
Hey, Jefferson, I'm honored to be on the Thom Hartmann party. Anyway, I want to reiterate a couple of lines from one of Bruce Cockburn's songs again, because I think it's so very important. That is, in the absence of a vision, There are nightmares. In the absence of compassion, there is cancer. And I want to talk about that just a little more. We are lacking vision and compassion, and we're promoting nightmares and cancer, societal cancer. And I'm totally opposed to that. I'll be at the rally tomorrow. I'm pretty handicapped. I'll probably only be able to drive through, but I support the whole thing, and I support, my sign says just water, no ice, please.
Thank you very much, Larry. I gotta go to Will, because we got a minute for our very last caller, and I gotta say goodbye. Will, you got about 35 seconds.
Real fast. A sign is a terrible thing to waste. And finally, the candidate, Manchurian candidate, is it he or is it her? I'm done. Have a great weekend, and send the events tomorrow.
That was a quick one, Will. Thank you so much for the call. Thanks, everybody, for your wisdom. Tomorrow, I agree, is going to be a big day. I didn't ask for predictions today. Would have been fun. The question is, will it be more than the last one? What was the last one? 7.5 maybe million? It'd be nice to get up to 8. To me, the next big magic number could be 10, and the magic of all magic numbers could be 12, because that gets us a 3.5%. That sort of 3 to 5% of people who, if they're really willing to opt out, if they're really willing to ongoingly protest a regime, tends to result in regime change. What I want to do is say thank you to all y'all. It is wonderful to be part of this community, as I've been able to be for the last week and a half. Tom will be back with you on Monday. I want to say thanks to the team here. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to everybody who makes this show possible. We appreciate you. We appreciate all the listeners, because you make the show possible. One fun sign, listen to The Hartmann Show. 2 N's. Put it on a sign. Nobody plugged that one. That's a good one. You're the coalition of benevolently irrational, the good people doing good things for no good reason. With you, democracy is possible, and you are priceless. Definition of priceless, worth a lot, not for sale. Love y'all. Be well.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.